Hi, I'm Scott from Chief Architect. We're going to take a look at the tips and best practices for kitchen and bath design. As we go through the video and the steps, we're going to look at various techniques for interior design, kitchen and bath design, using it to sell the project, using it for your construction drawings, creating different types of cabinets, and learning how the best practices and tips can make you very efficient. We'll look at the rendering technologies available in the program, as well as the floor planning, elevations, and dimensioning tools. There are stair tools that we'll explore in the program, as well as ceiling tools. So let's go ahead and jump in and get started. I've opened up Chief Architect Premiere. Some of you may have Chief Architect Interiors. When I reach a feature that is not in Interiors, I'll point it out and how you can work through the issue. To begin with, let's just draw a simple room, and I'm going to use an exterior wall tool. And I'm just going to come in here roughly and create the size of the room that I want. You'll notice a temporary dimension that's being displayed, and when I complete the room, I can actually come up here to the automatic dimension tool and dimension the room. You can click on the wall and drag it, or you can highlight the wall, click on the dimension, and type in an exact dimension. So either way you choose to do that. In a 3D view, let's do a full floor overview. You can see that when we drew the walls, obviously it has the colors, the flooring, the wall height. These are all defaults, and I'll touch on those, that are set up before you begin drawing. If you want to change the ceiling height, you can click on the outside. Now notice when I selected this, anytime I select an item, down here in the lower left-hand corner of your screen, it says exterior room. I can simply click on that and raise the ceiling height that way. Let me hit escape. While you're in this 3D view, you can do your design work. Let me choose our window tool, and I'll click and place a window. You can reposition it. Notice the temporary dimensions here. Doors work the same way. You can place a door. And then finally, cabinets. If I come into the corner, place a cabinet, you'll see that they bump together. And I'm going to touch on each one of these elements individually, and we'll go in depth on each one of them. Let me return back to our floor plan view simply by clicking on the tab here. And let's also go into our default settings. And I'm going to choose a function here called Auto Exterior Dimensions, and I'm going to put Auto Refresh on. Now, when I do that, notice that my dimensions automatically update. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to toggle off my grid, and I'm also going to toggle off my crosshair because that can get annoying when we're doing the video. So I'll just turn that off here real quick. When you're in this view and you move, notice the dimensions automatically update now. I'm going to press the space bar to deselect that door. And if you are a kitchen and bath designer, let's go ahead and zoom right into this corner over here. Notice that this wall here, let me just open it up so you can see it a little easier. Let's go to our wall types. The wall type that I selected was a Shake Siding 6 that is actually a custom wall type that I built. And you can build your own or choose from a drop-down of wall types in the program. But inside this wall, there are several layers. There's the sheetrock, there's the siding, there's the studs, and that may be great for some people. Other people may want to only see two lines for their walls. And the way you can do that, let's just highlight our wall here, and I've got a shortcut down here to our layers. And I'm going to turn off our wall layers. And notice what happens when I turn that wall layer off. The color went away, and now I only see two walls, two lines for the walls, the interior side, the exterior side, or if you're doing two rooms back to back, the two interior sides. And so that's a very clean look for your floor plan if you want to just see those interior walls. Now the next tip that we're going to explore, you see our dimensions? I actually used the tool in our toolbar called Auto Exterior Dimensions. There's an Auto Interior Dimensions that will place the dimensions in your room. And then there are also dimension tools that you can dimension very specifically in a more of a manual fashion. And most of the time, if you only are working in interior spaces, you'll notice that my dimensions actually dimensioned here in feet and inches. And typically you're going to want to display that in inches. In Chief Architect Premier, we have the concept of dimension defaults, and let's go ahead and change our dimension defaults. Right now they're 1/4 inch scale. Might be good for using for building, framing, but you will find a dimension default called NKBA for the National Kitchen and Bath Association. Dimension defaults. So I'm going to make that change, and let's go ahead and update our dimensions again since I turned that off. And you'll notice that that effectively reformatted our dimension specifically to just inches. And you can do this on an individual dimension. If you double click on that dimension line and you look at the primary format, let's uncheck this default, you can choose how you want that dimensioned. An individual dimension, you can choose the formatting of it, the accuracy, maybe 1/8 of an inch is what I've chosen in my case. If you want to display a secondary format, maybe you want to display it in a metric if you're in Canada or in Europe, or you want to display it in feet and inches, you can use this secondary format and simply choose the style that you want. So I'll cancel out of that, but by double clicking on the dimension, you have the ability to make all of those changes: arrow style, the reach of this extension line that goes down in here to the door and window. You have control over each one of those elements. And I will go into dimensioning details a little bit later in the video, and we'll talk about how to do that for your floor plan, your electrical plan, and your elevations. Let's move on and explore the cabinet tools in Chief Architect. The program supports custom and manufacturer cabinets. The box, or the cabinet structure, is the same for both. If you want a custom cabinet, you would leave the door and door style, choose what you want. You'll find hundreds in Chief Architect. If you want it manufacturer specific, you'd browse to that catalog and apply their door or drawer style. There are literally thousands of combinations of cabinet styles you can create with the tools in Chief Architect. Let's jump back into the program and explore. I'm going to place a couple of more base cabinets. And when you place these cabinets, like all objects in the program, you can click on them, you can resize them, you can move them. If we grab this window and pull it up a little bit, if you're doing remodeling work and you happen to have a window already in your floor plan and it's dimensioned, I can place a cabinet that might be used as my base sink, use a center tool, highlight the window, and it will exactly center it. So you can do a lot of design work in this perspective 3D view that I'm in. We'll do some more design work in the plan view and in an elevation view. But for now, I'm just going to place a couple more cabinets. Let's go up and grab a few wall cabinet tools. And notice when I go to the corner, you'll get a preview outline of the way that cabinet work is going to place, and then you can click and place it. The cabinets are intelligent. Notice that they bump and form the countertops. And so you're getting a lot of the flexibility of the way the tools work. Now, my colors for my countertops, my door style, these are all defaults that I've set up ahead of time and used. And we'll explore that where you can set your own defaults. So if you know the type of kitchen that you're going to design ahead of time, you can begin with that in place. So we've placed a handful of cabinets here. And let's go in and explore the way that our cabinets work in Chief Architect. So first of all, if I double click on this base cabinet, you'll get our base cabinet dialog. And again, all objects in the program behave this way. So whether it's a door or a window, you'll get the panel that I have up here. And notice down the left hand side there are lots of different panels that you can actually bring up to make changes to each one of these elements. I would encourage you to explore those so you know exactly the capabilities within the different objects. So first of all, the cabinet style. You can choose to have different shapes of this cabinet with the size and width. Previously in 3D I just clicked on that cabinet and stretched it, but here is where you can specify exact dimensions. Floor to bottom. You may have some hung cabinets, so you may want to raise that up 12 inches from the floor. And then there is a thing I like to point out: use finished floor. Sometimes when you place cabinets, they may go on the finished floor, or they may sit on a non-finished floor, and that will actually lower it to the thickness of that finish. Countertop thickness, if you have flat sides and a flat back. If you're going to be placing a cabinet next to a range, you would want to have a flat side in that case, so the countertop overhang, should you have one, in our case it's 1 inch, would be clipped off. The backsplash height, notice my backsplash height has a 0. The D next to that stands for default. That just happens to mean that that's a default that can be set. And then the thickness for that countertop. So you'll notice all of this information you can modify in the cabinets. And if we click on the front of this cabinet, let's say I click on this drawer and you want to remove it. That happens to be on the front panel. Notice how that jumped. If I click delete, it will just simply remove it. If you want to add a bank of drawers, you would simply use the insert or add new button and insert those elements. Box construction, framed or frameless. Notice that I'm using frameless, but if I highlight framed, you have control over these settings here. The style of your door overlay, and also the dimensions for that overlay you can set as well. Triple face, that's going to force a triple door or a double door for a double. And you can just simply explore all of the options on each one of these panels. On the door and drawer, you can control the hardware, information about the hinges, moldings. When I get into the wall cabinets, we'll explore some of the moldings. One point that I'd like to point out is for moldings, you would apply a molding for your edge profile. It may not be obvious, but we call that a molding profile instead of an edge profile. Here's where you would set that molding profile by simply going in and adding new and browsing out to the catalogs. And as long as this catalog came up, there are a couple of different catalogs that you can choose from within the program. There are tens of thousands of items in here. The core catalog is what ships with the program, and you can browse down through that. Bonus catalogs are catalogs that we publish on a monthly basis, and then manufacturer catalogs are different manufacturers, and both the bonus and the manufacturer catalogs you can visit our 3D library from our website and download those that you choose. We don't ship those with the program because in some cases not everybody uses every manufacturer out there, so you can pick and choose what you want. So in the case for the edge profile, let me condense that. You'll find that underneath our edge moldings, and you can choose the different styles. You'll find more of those edge moldings in the bonus catalog, and you can simply choose that profile and apply it onto the cabinet. Cancel this for now. So there are lots of elements in here you can make a change. So this first cabinet, I'm actually going to make this a pull-out drawer for a trash area. So I'm going to highlight this front of this cabinet. Instead of a right door, I'm going to choose it to be a drawer. And you'll notice that what happened, it's kind of grayed out because it's selected. Let me click up here so you can see it a little better. You'll notice what happened to the default hardware. It's right in the middle of that drawer. And so for your pull-out, you're going to more than likely want to have that positioned up near the edge. So we'll go back to the hardware panel. And you'll notice that down from top, let's go ahead and make that change here for the drawer, for the drawer handle. Down from top, I'm just going to highlight that and type in 3 inches and notice where that hardware moved up to. So now I've created a specific pullout for that, and as long as I'm in here, I'm also going to specify the label to just be a pullout. Notice that I can control the label that's being displayed. Pull out, and I'll leave the 24 in there. And let me just show you the floor plan view. Maybe I can split my screen with a Shift F6, and you can see that these labels are dynamic and making and getting a change. Now some of the appliances and fixtures can either be placed inside of a cabinet like a sink or outside of a cabinet like a refrigerator. So the very next cabinet that we have here, I want to convert that to our sink base. And if we open up our library, you can browse through the core catalogs. You can also go into your user catalog. I have a user catalog that I save my favorites in, and I would encourage you to set up a user catalog that you can save your favorite items that you use frequently. There's a search element in the library browser, but using a user catalog I find is very helpful in the design process. And one of my folders that I have is a kitchen short list that happens to be things that I use frequently. So I'm going to use a sink. I'll get a preview of that, and I will click on this sink in this view over here. Now on the left hand side of my screen, notice that this cabinet that I'm going to place this sink into is called a base or a B39. And when I actually click on that cabinet with the sink, watch what happens to this label when I click this sink onto the cabinet. You can see that it changed to a sink base 39. So that label is dynamically being updated based on the type of component that is going into that cabinet. The other element that will go inside of a cabinet is a dishwasher. And it may be a little different than you're used to in the field, where you would just leave an opening for that dishwasher. In Chief Architect, that dishwasher will actually replace the cabinet box with a dishwasher. So rather than leaving a hole and building a custom countertop, you place a box, a 24-inch box, and then click on it with the dishwasher. Let me close my 2D view here just briefly. Oh, cancel that. I closed the closed the 3D view. Let's slide Let's just remove our door. Let's slide our window over in front of our sink base. Let me grab a range and we'll just place that over here and we'll bump that. Let's just slide a cabinet in here and we'll bump that over and place a range over here. Okay. And let me reopen that 3D view back up that I had. Let's just reorient in here just a little bit. Now let's make a few changes to the cabinets. First of all, anytime that you have an element, we talked about our corner cabinet is automatic when you place it in the corner, but you could just as easily, you see our custom type of cabinet is a corner. As long as it has the right dimensions, that corner will be created, or you can just move your mouse cursor into the corner, and when that cursor changes to a corner outline, you can click and place it and it will generate that corner cabinet. On the front of this cabinet, if I highlight it, notice there's an option for a Lazy Susan, or if you remove the diagonal, it will remove that diagonal and create a pie shape. You can also create a concave shape in here. If you go into the bow and we'll put in -3 inches, and we've created that concave shape cabinet. Now if I want to make changes to more than one cabinet, there's a couple of ways that I can do it. I can click on a cabinet, hold my Shift key down, and click until I got the number of elements that I want. Again, notice down here in the lower left-hand corner of the screen it says 2 objects selected. So that gives you an idea of how many you have selected. I'll show you how to select all of the light cabinets here in a minute. For now, I have the 2 wall cabinets selected, and if I click the Open button or Control E on my keyboard, and by the way, if you're using a Mac, a right mouse click, I believe, equals a Control key. You'll find a hotkey list on our knowledge base. If you go to the knowledge base on Chief Architect, you can do that search and find all of the hotkey adjustments. On the Moldings panel, I'm going to add a new molding for our crown. And I'm just going to go into the core catalogs under Architectural, find a crown molding, choose the profile that I want. So this molding profile is nothing more than a DXF style file that you'll find from any millwork manufacturer. So if you use a favorite millwork manufacturer and our program doesn't have it, just import that and you can use that molding profile. And if you are one of the creative types that likes to create your own crown molding, then you can use the CAD tools and draw your own profile and add it in. And the program will automatically extrude that in 3D. So with this crown profile selected, it's actually a pretty large profile. So let's reduce that down to maybe 4 inches in total width. You can see the update preview, and the vertical offset that's actually sitting down on the box. The vertical offset, if I've got a 6-inch crown and if I put -6, that would actually sit right on top of that box. So for that reveal, you might say that that's maybe -5 inches and 7/8, giving you a 1/8 inch reveal. Select OK, and you can see the molding profile that we have selected. And if we were to double click on that corner cabinet and change the bow depth to match, let's set that to -3 inches, the base, notice that it automatically updated the crown molding for you. So the program did that. And in that dialog for crown molding, you see this image that I have up has a buildup of 4 different crowns. And this is a cross section that I used to create this diagram for the installer. You can stack and do the horizontal offset information and the vertical offset information so that you can create the exact style of molding that you want. And in this detail I added some text with the name of the profile and the amount of the offset. So in the case of our kitchen here, I've only put one crown on that cabinet, but it's very easy to keep adding that to the number of elements that you want. Now, one of the tools that I like to use is a tool called the Copy and Reflect About, and I use it all the time. Here's an example. Let's take this cabinet to the right of our window. I have it selected, and there is a copy operation that I can choose in the lower left hand corner. You'll notice there's a little copy paste that comes up. Once I select that, as soon as I do, I get a new set of tools, and one of the tools is called Reflect About an Object. If I highlight the sink or the window, notice that I get a visual feedback when I have the element highlighted. If I click right here, notice what happened. That took the spacing of this cabinet with respect to the distance of this window and made it exactly the same distance. And it also copied the same element. Notice that wall cabinet came over with our crown molding. I like to use this all the time. Let's take another look at an example. Let's scroll around here. Let's select this base cabinet between our dishwasher and our range. And let's suppose that I click in between the drawer and the door, and I come in here and I say Add New. And let's go ahead and put a new drawer in here. And let's give it a dimension of 8 inches. Say OK. It put that drawer in there, and let's select this element that was a door and we'll change that to a drawer. So pretty quickly I've created a bank of 3 drawers. Select OK. And let's say that I want that exact cabinet on the other side of my range. So we'll do the exact same thing. Select the cabinet, choose the copy operation. This tool down here in the lower left. You mouse over it, you get the copy paste highlight. Again, you mouse over the Reflect About, click that, and again the visual indicator, you move over what you want to reflect it about, and you click right there. This is a tool that I use all of the time. A lot of symmetry in design, whether you're doing an island, there are just so many things that this will just save you a lot of time. Let me zoom out a little bit here, and I'm going to drag a wall in just to show you something. Before I do that, you'll notice that we can see right into the design here. One of the things that I've done, you see this dashed line is actually a wall, and I've toggled underneath the general panel here. I've used this invisible setting right here to temporarily make that wall invisible. It's another tip that I will typically use to get the right view that I'm after, and then clean it up before I do the final plan set. But if you're trying to create a rendering or see for yourself as you're doing designing, it's a small space, in particularly a bathroom, then you can toggle that wall invisible, and then you can scoot right in there. I'm going to use our interior wall tool just to kind of show you. By the way, I can drag these out. I'm just going to drag it out a little ways. You can draw these walls in 2D or in 3D, and obviously it's going to be more accurate in 2D, but you can draw those in this particular view. I'll just grab that wall and pull that back here just a little bit. And what I want to illustrate, let me just slide that wall over here just a little bit. and actually this is a good view to illustrate. Let me place a cabinet in here, and let's place that in there. Now you'll notice when I place that, let's zoom way in here. First of all, what we're looking at is, hopefully you can see this on your screen. You'll notice roughly where my mouse cursor is, I've got a solid red line. That indicates the countertop and the overhang. The dashed line represents the cabinet box by the indication here, and you can see actually my cabinet overhang is 1 inch. So you can see the effect of both of those components and where they relate to one another. And when we place this 24-inch base cabinet near the wall, you'll notice that there was another dashed line that appeared. Well, one of the things that is on by default in Chief Architect is a concept of automatic fillers. And that's underneath our defaults. If we go to cabinets, you'll see that under the general cabinet, if I double click on that, slide this over here a little bit, there is this option here to create automatic fillers. If you are a detailed designer, I suggest you just turn this off. Just come in here and turn this off, because when you want to place a cabinet, you typically don't want a filler to be automatic where it could potentially slip by you. And I think it's better to explicitly choose the filler from the cabinet menu and place a filler of 1 inch, 2 inches, whatever it may be, and you have more control over it. There's a few other things. Minimum cabinet width 9 inches, so if you go to resize it, it won't resize past 9 inches. Of course, you can double click on the cabinet and set it to anything you want. And then when you resize a cabinet, it resizes in 3-inch increments. You can put another value in there should you determine that there is a better value. So I always recommend that you turn off this automatic fillers if you're a kitchen and bath designer. So I've done that, and you'll notice that now I have this space in between my wall and my box. So to place a filler, you can go up into the menu here and choose specifically to place a base filler in this case. And notice how it just fills the space for us. It's intelligent, it's smart, so it knows the appropriate size. Of course, you can always click on that. And when I clicked on it, notice that I got the cabinet on the right of it. Press the tab key, that will filter to the next element. But I can grab that and automatically resize that into the right space. So again, turn off those automatic fillers if you're a detailed designer. I think it will just help you be more accurate. And then, as I talked about, when you resize a cabinet, notice how that bumps in 3-inch increments. Again, if you want to override that, you can just double click on the cabinet, come in here and type in any dimension to 1/16 of an inch, and be very accurate if you have a custom cabinet situation. Okay, let's talk about our backsplash. Notice that on some of our cabinets, I'm going to resize this a little bit and reflect that around our cook range. Place that. And again, if you want to place a filler, you can come in and place a wall filler in here. And if you want to assign a crown molding to that, you can easily do that as well. Just open that up. In fact, actually, let me just delete that and we'll just pull it over for the time being. Make it easy. So some of our cabinets have a backsplash and some of them don't. For example, let's open up our sink base. And you'll notice my backsplash is set at 0. So there's no backsplash. On our wall cabinets, there is an option that says on the cabinet to do backsplash to base below. It's checked right here. And so that's generating at whatever elevation your cabinet is, all the way down until it finds a base cabinet. And in the condition that we have maybe a cook range here and a window where we would maybe like that backsplash to go up the 18 inches, let's explore one method to do this. So the easiest way, let me just shift select these 4 wall cabinets, double click them, and I'm just going to remove that option here to completely remove that backsplash. You will find an automatic backsplash tool in Chief Architect. Let me just click Custom Backsplash. I'll click on the wall, and notice that it placed our default backsplash on there. And we're going to have to pretty quickly go into our library and change the color of that. Let's go into our materials, and we'll just find a backsplash to quickly tone that down here a little bit. That picked up my default. So it placed the backsplash on there, and it made it easy for it to generate the entire width of that wall. Now you can take this backsplash and highlight it, and you'll notice that I get a surround of that. This is actually, in Chief Architect, is a CAD object. We call it something like a polyline. And you can select, let's say, this edge, and you can pull that down and modify this in any way you see fit. So again, we could pull this down and notice that I can actually snap over and get it at the exact same elevation. I could also pull it down and snap it and create it at the same elevation here, and pull this up. And you can do further customization. I've highlighted this segment of the line, so notice underneath my cursor I have a square, and on the other sides that I don't have select are smaller squares. So this is a selected line. And you can use some of our CAD tools. I'll just point out a couple. One of them is create an arc. So you can create a shape for that backsplash. You can do it for a tub, platform, a variety of things. I'll go into a couple of those a little bit later. But it's very easy to create custom shapes and styles to do that. Let me remove this backsplash, and actually I will open up a wall elevation here. Underneath our elevation tools, there's a specific wall elevation, and let's just point and click towards the wall we want. And then using my zoom tool, let's just zoom in on this area for our cook range. Using that same backsplash tool, instead of clicking once and generating it for the entire wall, I can actually click and drag, and I'm not going to be too accurate with this. Let's go ahead and just click and drag and create that countertop. Again, we can just pull that over, and now I have just this segment for our backsplash behind our cook range. And it looks like when I initially did that, again, I'm just going to place that down so it snaps right to the countertop edge. And I noticed I have a little extra diamond. I'm just going to snap that over there and remove that break so I don't have an extra break. And again, we can click and place that on there. This view that I'm in, this wall elevation, is also called a vector view. There are different styles of cameras. If you go to your standard camera, it's more of the render. I prefer the vector view for my elevations, but there are other styles that you can choose. This glasshouse view, sometimes helpful for the kitchen design to see through the cabinets if you want to specify shelving. There is an option in each one of those cabinets to specify the shelving if you want to get down to that level of detail. So you have the flexibility of these rendering styles at your disposal. You can just toggle through those. And actually, I'll give you a couple of examples of some renders here. Let me open those up. So this is a rendering technique called technical illustration. More of a monochromatic, non-realistic view, and allows you to maybe show this portfolio to your clients without being maybe held to a very specific color. This is a line drawing watercolor, and if you spend much time with line drawing or watercolor, let me toggle back to the program real quick. In these technique options, there is options to specify the squiggle amount, amplitude, frequency, and those kinds of things for that, as well as watercolor. If you set the paint contrast, turbulence, pigment, there are lots of different details that you can specify for that. So the different rendering techniques allow you to show different views. This one on top is a ray trace view, and then on the bottom you see the combination of line drawing, watercolor, and a few others in there. So a few different ways to set up your backsplash. Again, one is to grab the cabinet. In this case, our wall cabinet, choose base below. That will send that down. If you select a base cabinet, we can come up here and let's go ahead and choose the backsplash to be probably have like 3 inches on that to the window. You can set that up, and so again, there's a few different ways of doing it. You can also click on the custom backsplash and simply click on the wall, and then it will generate the entire backsplash. There is a tool called the Material Eyedropper, which I'm going to talk more about materials, colors, and textures, and set that up. Let's just delete that and we'll remove that. So you now have a nice solid backsplash all the way around. We can pull that down, use our snap edges, and have that backsplash nice and smooth. When we get into the bathroom design, we'll talk about using different patterns and techniques for our tiles and how to import different colors. Here's an example of a tile that we imported. If we go back to our camera view, you can see the bright and crazy glass tile that we have in here. Now, the next thing I want to explore is, here's a tool if you have a cabinet with a different style of door style. Let's take this cabinet and let's bump it up to a 48-inch cabinet. And if I double click on it, I want to come in on the front of the cabinet here, and just above the door I'm going to click, and it's very difficult to see on your monitor, but notice when I click I get the item number, which is item 2, and it's a auto left door. If I change this to element number 1, that's a separation. And if I add a new component in here, a new face item, let's change that to a double door, and I want the item height to be 15 inches. And now I have two different components on this cabinet face, and I want them to be different. So on the front of this upper set of doors, I have the tool here for appliance, door, or drawer, and to go into the library. And if I want to make that a set of glass doors for that upper section, what we can do is browse in. I'm just going to go into our basic core catalog here and find a glass cabinet, maybe under framed here. Find a glass panel, select OK, and make that change. and now I've got a different set of doors on the top. So that's the way you can set that up. Let's go ahead and remove this cabinet. If you like that cabinet, one, you could copy and reflect it about that cook range, and we've done that a few times. The other thing that you can do is you can set that as your default. So temporarily, I'm going to highlight that cabinet. I'm going to make that my default. And now every time I place a wall cabinet, it will automatically have those same exact attributes on it as we have set as our default. That tool works for doors, windows. So once you've got something that you like for your design, you can make that your default just by simply highlighting the cabinet and then this Make Default toolbar. It's actually called Set as Default. Then every time you place a new object, it will have those elements inside and make that your default that you place going forward. Now another thing that I like to do is I like to save items to my library. And if I've made anything somewhat custom or spent very much time on it, I might save that into my library. So I've highlighted this cabinet, and down here in the status bar there is an Add to Library button. If I click that, it's going to come over into my personal library folder, and it's going to give it a default name, Wall Cabinet. I might name that specifically so that I can find it. There's also keywords I can put in there, so if I find the search. So if let's delete that cabinet. If I come and grab it out of my library now for any other design that I'm working on, you can just click and place and pull that cabinet right out of your library. So pretty handy. One of the things that I've done previously, let me just pull that up, is to create this wine cabinet. And I did this, may have taken maybe a few minutes to do it. I placed a solid front on the cabinet and then used our CAD tool and cut out the circles for the wine bottles and then placed the wine bottles in there. But I've saved that into my library, and if we browse down into my library, and one of the things that I like to do is export my library for an entire design in some cases. So I've got this design called Fire and Ice Kitchen. It just helps me remember exactly the type of design that I was working on. You'll see that the design is here. Let's go back to our floor plan view. Might be easier to place that. I'll just place that in here. Let me rotate that. Use the rotate handle. I'll just bump that up against the wall. Pull that over. Let's pull that wall back a little bit so we can get back in there into our 3D view. And let's slide over, and you'll notice that the first thing is, well, gosh, there's no wine bottles. Well, that's interesting because if we were to take a look at the layers, notice my furniture accessories are not on. Let's turn that on so that we can then see those wine bottles. And I've just saved myself quite a bit of time. You can do the entire island, and I'll place one of those in a minute, but an entire kitchen, and very easily place those elements that you've spent very much time on. Nice time-saving thing. Let me also place a full cabinet with an oven and warming drawer. Let's scroll up and find one of my elements in here. And double oven. Okay, well this will work. Let's place this off to the side over here. See if we're running out of room yet. Now, this isn't quite what I'm after. I want to have a warming drawer down here. I've got my double oven that I've already placed into the cabinet, and I want to explore how to add multiple appliances into the cabinet. So let's take a look at that. Let's begin by opening up this cabinet. And first thing that you should be aware of is you want to start from the top down of the cabinet. If I highlight this drawer area that I want to become an appliance, you'll notice that the dimension here is 8 1/4. If I change that to be large enough for the drawer, 10 inches or so, it's going to actually take this double oven that is reserved at a little over 50 inches and it's going to condense that. And I don't want that to happen. So to reserve the extra 2 inches I need on that drawer, I'm actually going to begin at the top and then work my way down. So let's make this 26 inches, and if you do -4 in here, press tab, it does the math for you. Notice that the double oven remains at the same dimension, and now this drawer area is actually 12 1/4 inches. That's item number 6. I'm going to go up one item. Sometimes it's easier to click on these because the separations are quite small. And I'm going to change my separation. The D stands for default, which is in your cabinet defaults. Let's change that and add an inch, so it's 1 3/4. Press tab. You see the preview. May be difficult to see on your screen, but the preview of that separation now goes to 1 3/4 inches. And then let's change to item number 7, and let's do the same thing. Remove the D and add an inch to that. Just to back up for a second, D stands for default. If I put a D in here and press tab, that's going to pull out the defaults in my cabinets, and I'll open up the cabinet defaults and show you a little bit more about that in a minute. Let's remove that back out and put that 1 inch back in. Press tab. Now when I select the drawer, I've got the exact dimension at 10 1/4 that I want. And for the warming drawer, let's change the item type to an appliance. And then, much like we did the wall cabinet where we changed the upper door style to glass, let's choose this library button. And let's use a search mechanism now. Let's type in warming drawer. And that's going to give us a few options. Let's go ahead and use this 10-inch warming drawer. I believe that's a Viking drawer. And choose that. And select OK. And now you can see there's our warming drawer. And the material, which is a different color of stainless, you can use your eyedropper, pick that up off of the warming drawer and apply it onto the double oven, and now they match. So the key to what we did here was to change the item type to appliance. We moved down from the top so that the cabinet resizes appropriately, and that's how you can add multiple appliances into a cabinet. At the beginning of the video, we talked about 2 different ways to create cabinets, either a custom cabinet or a manufacturer cabinet. Both of these styles have the same box, and the way you make them specific, either to a manufacturer or custom, is to just change the door and drawer styles. Let's take a look at the specifics of this in the program. With the eclectic kitchen that we have going on here, let's browse up into our library. And first of all, under the Chief Architect Core Catalogs, you'll find a category for cabinet door styles. Under Architectural, you'll find cabinet door and drawer styles. And in the Core Catalog from Chief Architect, you're going to find just about most door styles that you can imagine placing on a cabinet. And to find a door style, let's go ahead and just come down here and we'll find let's actually go into the European or the area, and you can simply grab one of these and click and apply it onto the cabinet. Let me change my camera so you can see this a little better in a vector style view. You see that cabinet door style. So it's pretty easy. That's the same type of cabinet. Here's a cross door. You can come in here and simply just go through and click the different styles of cabinets. Now let's go in. Let me undo that last selection. And let's find our manufacturer catalogs. The manufacturer catalogs are catalogs, again, you need to download these from the 3D library on the website, which you'll find underneath the User Center, Catalog Downloads, and that will take you to the 3D library. You'll find a category called Cabinets, and this is where you can simply come in and download the different manufacturers and products. There's also a lot of other categories you can use the 3D library to download. Let's close this. So in our manufacturer catalogs, let's come down, and here's Aristocraft, one of the top selections. And on their door styles, all you have to do is come in here, find the door style, click on it, and make the change. Here's the matching drawer style. You simply click on the element and make that same change. So as you browse down through the different door styles, you can get a preview of what these elements look like. And if I click on this curved cabinet, that door style may not be available in that. So the program will allow you to make changes that may not be possible in the real world. So if you are an Aristocraft dealer, you just need to be aware that those components can be changed. As well, if I select this cabinet and I stretch that out to, let's say, 45 inches, that door style may not be available in a wide cabinet format. So be aware of that. The other element with the door styles are, you'll find typically in each manufacturer catalog, are wood species and finishes. Let's toggle back to our camera to the regular standard view. And for Aristocraft, you'll notice that they have different styles of wood species. So if we go in, let's go into their maple finishes. First of all, I can choose the style of the wood that I want. And then in this case, they have their wood finish. I've got a very similar maple right now. But let's go ahead and apply that to one of the components and just see how that looks. And then you can go in and apply that to the different components. Let me undo that. And back in the finishes, these are the available finishes. Now let's just select one of these colors and apply it to the cabinet. Now first of all, you'll notice that when I clicked on that color, my icon has changed to a spray can. The spray can implies that it's going to paint that as a solid color. If you want to toggle that and make it a stain mode so you can actually see the wood grain, there is in the lower left-hand section of your screen the toggle for either blending the colors, stain, or if I click it again, then that will change it to a full spray can. And my icon changes. So notice now my icon is a paint roller, and if I click on this particular cabinet box, you can actually still see the wood grain, versus if I change that to a spray can, it will paint it as a solid color. Maybe, again, difficult to see through the video, but let me undo that. The other elements I want to show you about with the Material Painter down here are, you'll notice these different spray cans, CORFP. Well, right now there's a little checkbox in the C, which means component. So if I come in and click on a single element, let's go back into stain mode, and I click on a single element, that's component mode. That will paint a component within the cabinet. Now if I change it to object mode, let's grab a different color, then it will paint the entire object. Notice it grabbed the toe kick and the pull-out drawer. And then room would imply every material has to be the same color. every material that I paint in that room would then get that change. So let's change that to room mode. So if I click on this, all that same color will change within the room. The other one is floor and plan. So if you have a large floor plan, all your cabinets would then change with that same color. And then the plan, let's say you have multiple floors, you click on that cabinet or that material and all the colors will change. These are called scoping tools for the Material Painter. So you can choose your manufacturer door style, you can choose your manufacturer wood species, and then you can change the colors. Once you get a color that you like, you can then apply it to all cabinets in that design. So let's go ahead and change that to a light color and make the change. If you like that, you're good to go. Now, I'd mentioned there is a way to select cabinets, light cabinets, and make a global change. Looks like we missed one up here. For the wall cabinets, let's select all wall cabinets in the plan and make a global change to those. You've noticed in the past I can shift click on these cabinets and select them. Okay, and that works for relatively few objects. But if you have a lot of objects in the plan, there is another way to select things. Let's zoom out into our plan here. You'll notice that I have a collection of appliances, wall cabinets, base cabinets, a full height cabinet for our double oven. If I go into my cabinet mode and I choose wall cabinet, if I click and place a wall cabinet, if I click and place, it will insert that wall cabinet into my design. But if I hold my shift key down and come over here, hold my shift key down, click and drag, it's going to select all wall cabinets in the design. Likewise, if I select the base cabinet, come over here, hold the shift key down, click and drag, it will only select the base cabinets. This is a pretty handy tip if you have a larger plan or several items in there and a shift click is tedious. Just enter into one of those modes and you can easily isolate those components. So for our wall cabinets, let's go ahead and draw a marquee around those elements. And I'm going to double click to open them. And this is going to open up all of our wall cabinets. And first of all, you'll notice that in our height it says no change. Well, actually you can change that. The reason that it says no change is there's a mix and match of cabinet heights. Some of our cabinets are 48 inches and some of the cabinets are 46. If I make this change, it's going to reset them all to the new dimension that I have. That's what no change has, or no change implies. Sometimes no doesn't really mean no in this case. To add a molding, we've placed a crown on the cabinets, but I want to come in here and I want to add a light molding. So let's use the Add New button and let's grab a base molding just for a light rail. Select this profile and there's a setting down here, selected profile offset from bottom. And again, you notice that it's probably tough, but in the diagram over here, that molding is actually sitting on the cabinet. So our molding is 1.5 inches in height. Let's go ahead and change that to 1.5 inches on the offset. And if you use a negative number, in this case, notice it disappears. We used a negative number on the crown molding, but in this case we want to set that from the bottom. So let's go ahead and select OK. Oh, actually before I select OK, the horizontal offset, the width of our molding is 3/4 inch. So if I set that at 1 inch, that's going to move the horizontal. It's going to move it inside the box 1/4 inch. And it's actually the vertical offset. let's change that to 1.5, and that needs to be a negative number actually. And now you can see the preview of that, and our horizontal offset again needs to be a negative number. And now you can see what the profile of that light molding looks like. And now when we select OK, let's go back into our 3D view. You can now see where that light molding, light rail, has created the exact look we're after. And use the material eyedropper, click on the color you want, cabinet box, click on, let's make it in the room, click on that light rail, and that will change that light rail in the entire area of that room. So we can group select our cabinets and do it that way. Let's do the same thing for the base cabinets. For a molding edge profile, we call it a molding. Hold the Shift key down in my base cabinet. That will grab all of those base cabinets. And on the Moldings tab, we'll add a new molding. And let's go into our bonus catalog. Actually, in our core catalog, you'll see some edge moldings. There's a selection of a few. In the bonus catalog, again, these are downloadable from the 3D library. You can get some additional countertop edge profiles. And these are just profiles. Again, if you have a fabricator that has a profile that's just a DXF file, typically they can give you that CAD file. You can import it and you can grab that off. Let's grab this step down profile and apply it to the cabinets. Go into our 3D view, and you can see again that the color is the default from the cabinet. Use the material eyedropper, click on that, and apply it to the color you want. And you can zoom in and see that edge profile that it's placed onto the edge. So that's how you put that edge profile on there. Now, one thing that I probably forgot to do is on this area near the cook range. This, if I rotate my camera around, you might be able to see it a little better. Notice that there are some cabinet move elements here. I usually use the mouse orbit tool. I find that to be pretty handy. And I'm not sure if, let's go ahead and just make this smaller temporarily. You see how that cabinet is actually coming into that cook range? So let's grab this cabinet, double click on it, and there's an option to make it have flat sides. And that's just going to square that up so that we don't have any overhang off of that. And then we can pull the appliance back into position. So anywhere that you have an overhang that needs to be clipped, you can just use that and set it to have a flat side. A tool that is related to the material eyedropper, which will pick up a color from one object and apply it to another, is Adjust Material Definitions. This is a very handy tool that, if I click on the hardwood floor here, I can actually change the angle of that hardwood floor. Let's make it go parallel with the cabinets, and you can make that change. The other function of this tool is there's a blend with texture option. And I can effectively click on this eyedropper anywhere on the screen and release it. Let's go ahead and grab this manufacturer color here. Oops. There we go, we got it. And I can adjust that color, slide it up or down. This could also be a color that is off of your screen. If a client brought you a photograph, you get it on your computer, you could use this material eyedropper and get a very specific color. So if it's not one of the paint manufacturers or products that you've seen before, just use the material eyedropper and color selector, grab that color, make any adjustments, and you can apply it and make it very specific. So we're going to have a very eclectic look now, and it's a very helpful. Let's go ahead and click on this range. I want to point out one other thing. Under the Properties panel, there are material settings, and this can help your scenes render out. If you want to create a realistic rendering, you'll find predefined metals, mirrors, plastic, polished. Sometimes I like to set my floor to be a matte so that it has a nice reflective color. And then there are metal types as well. And these are all pre-configured elements that actually react as they do in the real world, and you'll get a very realistic view. And there's quite a few other settings in here. I would encourage you to, if you want to get realistic renderings, to watch the ray trace videos that we have on our website. You can go into that video section and search for ray trace rendering, and you can get that. But if you take a look at this scene that I have up in the area, you can look at the sheen on the floor, the gloss on the countertops. That's all done with these settings. If I go back into the program, of adjusting, making these adjustments. If I change this just temporarily to matte, you'll notice that there are settings. You can use bump maps, which gives you more texture or the appearance of texture. And there is a lot of detail that you can actually use in the program. Let's bring up another rendering or two here, that you can create very, very realistic renderings. And this is the ray trace option that you can set for your designs. Here's a rendering we did the other day of a retro bathroom, a retro kitchen. And you can see that, again, you can really accentuate with the material reflections. If you look at the countertop here, create very, very realistic views. And of course, you can still use the artistic renders and use this. This is a watercolor render, or might even, actually that's a vector render, that you can create the non-realistic view, more artistic. So I would encourage you to experiment with your different rendering techniques. And in the ray tracing, one of the tips and shortcuts that I like to use, ray tracing can take a little while to generate views. If you're trying to generate a view like this, it can take a while to do. Sometimes what I like to do is get a quick preview, and when you are setting your material definitions, many of which come in default with Chief Architect with good settings, but if you're using something very unique, there is a setting underneath this define material that we're in. You can actually change the camera view, and I've changed our stainless steel to a matte finish. And I can get a preview ray trace of that immediately. Well, it's pretty quick, but you can see what the effects are of that very quickly without doing an entire scene. So that's just simply by changing the camera style. You can see that this matte finish for the brushed stainless is not a good setting and probably wouldn't look good. But you can quickly get a view of what that's going to look like, and I like to use that as a quick test to see how glossy my countertop or how polished my floor might look. And again, all you have to do is change that view to show ray trace. Probably don't want to leave that on because it can take some time to generate the views as you make changes. Up until now, we've been mainly doing our design work in a perspective view. And many of you probably prefer to work in a wall elevation or an elevation view. Let's explore how that works in the program. Under the elevation tools, you'll find a cross-section elevation, a backclip cross-section, and a wall elevation. Let's begin with the wall elevation. And I can either click and drag just a little ways, or I can drag all the way through the wall. The only thing that's important here is that it's at a 90-degree angle, so I get a straight-on view of that wall. I can toggle on line weights, which I don't like to use during design work, but it can give you a preview of how it's going to print at a scale. Turn those back off. You can also toggle the color on and off. One of the things, actually we'll leave the color on, one of the things that I like to do to clean up my view is I like to turn off these opening indicators. There's two ways to get into the layers. I think I've showed you before where you can click on an object, get a shortcut to the layers, find the opening indicators, and remove that out of the column for display. The other way to do that is to actually go into the entire layer set. I'm going to press O on the keyboard for opening indicators and remove it. So this gives me all layers that are being displayed. And we're going to talk more about layers and layer sets as we get into creating our construction drawings. So I've turned off those opening indicators, and I feel like that just helps clean up the view for me personally. While you're in this view, let me delete a couple of elements. You can do your design work. Let me place a refrigerator and a couple of partitions off to the left over here. Back into the library, let's find one of our refrigerators. I'll go into my personal favorites folder, and I'm going to find a refrigerator. And let's go ahead and place this refrigerator just somewhere off to the side here. Now the first thing that you can do, this is a specific branded refrigerator from Sub-Zero, but if you have a client, if you're doing interior space planning, you have a client, they're going to bring a bedroom set, a bed or a dining room table. All of the objects in Chief Architect can easily be resized. You can double click on them and you can put in very specific dimensions. So again, if you're going to be designing specifically for a client in your space planning, you can easily take some measurements of that furniture, and every object that you find in the program you can modify and set to be exact so your design is exactly right on. Let's reset our dimension for that refrigerator. And what I want to do in this elevation view is I want to choose a partition, and you'll find, in addition to the base under the cabinets, you'll find a partition, a shelf. Let's go ahead and place our partition. And if I select that, again, you can resize that. In some cases, if I double click on it, it's easier to actually open that information up and type in your exact values. So let's make it 84 inches in height. Let's go ahead and make this a wide partition and set the depth to 24 inches. Again, floor to bottom, and use floor finish are options that you can choose. Now I can snap that up against the refrigerator, and a tool we talked about earlier that's a big time saver is the copy and reflect about tool, so I don't have to do those same operations again. Copy, reflect about the refrigerator, and then I can actually put that partition right there. Let's place a wall cabinet above the refrigerator. Wall cabinet. Sometimes when you go to place a wall cabinet above the refrigerator, you notice I have an outline before I place it off to the left here. Sometimes it's a little tricky to get it above the refrigerator, I found, so you may have to place it off to the left and then resize it, but it looks like it's working pretty well here. So I'm just going to place this roughly in that area, and my default cabinet was earlier we made this cabinet and we set that to be our default. So I am going to have to modify that cabinet here just a little bit. So let's double click on it, and the first thing I want to do is let's go ahead and set the width of this to be 48, and we'll set the depth to be 24. And actually I'm probably okay with that glass style cabinet, and we'll select OK. And you can use the center tool, center that exactly on there. And since I've got my larger partitions, if I wanted to increase that by 4 inches, let's go back to the general and change that by 4 inches and set that. And I may have to bump that back down or add on the bottom of it. Let's actually come in here and add on the front. Let's change this. Actually, let's increase this by 1 inch in height, make it 18. That'll make it easier. And then on the front, it actually already did what I wanted to change that blank area in dimension, and that looks better. And now I can just snap that on top of the refrigerator. So doing your design work in the elevation view you can find to be an efficient way to do your design work. Now the next step is to talk about our dimensions. When you're doing your dimensioning in an elevation view, there are some tools that you'll find quite useful. In Chief Architect Premiere, there is a concept of annotation sets. And you can think of annotation sets as a collection of defaults. The default for dimensions, where we set our dimensions to have inches, maybe the arrow style on the dimension. You can also use that to change your text and what layers things go on. If you don't have Chief Architect Premiere and you have interiors, you can still make all of those changes. You just have to go in individually to dimensions and text and change the layers. So you can accomplish the same thing, but it will require you to make more clicks. Now let's explore our dimension tools. And as we begin, let me just clean up this design here just a little bit. Let's shorten our room up. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete our refrigerator. I drew a marquee around that by holding my Shift key down. Let's remove that wall, and I'm just going to bump this wall up against our cabinet so we create just a shorter room. Reactivate the camera by double-clicking on it. So I've isolated this wall and this room down to the single wall. And underneath your dimension tool, first of all, let's just review real quick. Our active default is set to be NKBA dimensions. If my active default were 1/4 inch scale, your dimensions are going to look very large, very messy. So if you are using Chief Architect Premiere, you can use annotation sets, NKBA annotation sets, that will also change the dimension default. And that's the only thing I'm focusing on right now. So if you have Chief Architect Interiors, you can open this up and change your dimension defaults to NKBA, and it'll be at the exact same place that I'm at. Let me close my library browser. Now, one of the tools that I want to point out is there's the NKBA Auto Dimension Tools. Let's click that. And when I do that, this is going to place the dimensions that may be typical of the way the NKBA likes you to dimension or recommends their guideline. So with these dimensions, you can modify them. Let's pick something here that we don't want to pick up, for example. Let me just zoom in, and for whatever reason, let's say that we don't want to pick up this wall cabinet. When I highlight a dimension, there is an extra diamond. If I just pull that diamond off out into space, really anywhere, it will remove that dimension. You can also add a dimension. Just simply grab the extra diamond on there and you can place that dimension. So the automatic dimensions give you a great jump start on dimensioning. But I want to show you how to dimension this manually so that you know how the dimensioning works. So let's go ahead and I'm going to just click undo a couple times and remove those dimensions off of the sheet. So I still have my NKBA dimensions, and if I use my manual dimension tool, let's just drag a dimension through the middle of the cabinets, and it's going to say my dimensions are going on a specific layer. I have a layer for dimensions, kitchen and bath. And when we get into electrical, I'm going to put my dimensions for electrical on dimensions electrical so that I can easily toggle the different views on when we create our construction drawings. Let's highlight that dimension and just simply drag it down. Now you're going to notice in this case it probably picked up more dimensions than you wanted to. So click on the diamond on this window. We'll just pull those over to the side and set it up. Now if you double click on this dimension and you open up the specification about what it's going to locate, there's a locate area under the primary format. Sorry, this is the actual dimension line. Let me open up the defaults for that. Under the locate area, you can see what it's actually going to locate. And here you can set it to be cabinet sides, centers, the fixtures, center lines, openings, casings, electrical. And you can actually create your own set of dimension defaults and make things quick. Let me just finish this lower section and then I'll redo it and show you a shortcut that I use. So I've created my dimension off of my boxes. I'm going to pull the center line or the midpoint off of that appliance so that it cleans the dimension up, and we'll pull that one off too. So this first line of dimensioning looks pretty good, except I want to grab this 2.5 inches and I'm just going to kind of center that so you can get individual elements. Notice that for each of my extension lines there is a number. And then if I double click on that, you can go into the extensions and by number you can format that differently. So you may have a center line in particular for one of the dimensions that we have set up, and you can make that change. The next tool is the center line tool. So let's use our center line and let's drag a center line through. Let's just drag it through that because I want to show you the shortcut and pull that down. Now this center line is picking up the cabinets as well, and I don't necessarily want that. So if I went into the defaults, simply double click on this, I could come into locate objects and I'd say, you know, in this case for the center lines, don't pick up necessarily the sides or the openings or the lines, and I could save that. I could also save that as my own default, and every time I use the centerline tool, change my default so that it would only pick those up. And I've actually done just that. So let's delete that dimension we just drew. And I've created this dimension default called center lines. And let's go back in and explore what I've made the changes on for locate objects just for center lines. So I've removed all the settings off of the cabinets. On fixtures, I've said let's pick up the centers. And primarily, I've removed all of the other check marks. Now when I run this centerline dimension, it's really only going to pick up the two sides that I want, and it's going to be very clean. And so all I've done is modified the dimension default. Let's go into our defaults here. And you can go into this. Oops, let's see if we can. And you can create a new default and derive it and save it. And that's what I've done in this case. I took the NKBA dimension default. I made a copy of it. I called it appliance center lines in my case. And then I modified what it's going to locate. And then when I manually run that tool, I don't have to add dimensions or remove dimensions. One of the things I also like to do is if you highlight the dimension, you can pull that right up into the appliance. And if you have your crosshair turned on, which I have turned off for the video, you can actually align those up very easily. So now you can get a very clean centerline look. Let's go ahead and pull that up just a little bit. Okay. Now the last dimension, let's go ahead and change this to end-to-end or wall elevation. And again, all I've done here is made a copy of the NKBA dimension and said only select the two endpoints as we pick that up. So that will pick up our entire wall length, and we can drag that on there. That's a little tight. Pull that down a little bit. And if I want to pull that extension, I can just grab that and pull that up. So we've been able to create very clean dimensions manually. If you want to add dimensions or remove dimensions, simply grab the diamond, pull it off, or you can grab that extra diamond and pull it back on and add your dimensions. You can use the automatic dimension tool. Let me just delete these real quick. Marquee select around them, press the delete key. Missed that one. Use the automatic dimension tool. And place your dimensions. Quick way to do it. Manually, if you need to draw that, you can draw it. And again, if you want to make your own dimension defaults, find one that is primarily working for you. Make a copy of it through the default options here. And then you can modify it to locate whatever you want. Also, with your setup, you can specify how far your extension lines are going off, how far they will reach. These are the settings that I like to use. The primary format, if you happen to be using metric, you can change your metric setup. If you wanted a secondary format, here's where you can modify all of these styles in here. And a little bit later, we'll talk about how to then send these drawings to a construction, we call it our layout facility. And in this case, I've augmented my elevation view with a couple of 3D images just to make sure the fabricator, and or I can use them for the homeowner, understand exactly what I'm after. We've completed the dimensioning in the wall elevation, and I want to do a couple more modifications to cabinets. And to begin with, let's explore modifying this sink base cabinet. If I open it up, what I want to do is I want to put some cabinet feet on the bottom. You'll find that option for actually pilasters and feet on the Accessories tab. To make the change, I'm going to begin by changing the toe kick. When I put feet on a cabinet, it's going to fill the toe kick space. If I want a 6-inch cabinet foot, I need to change that area for the toe kick. Press Tab, you'll see the change in the preview panel. The next thing, let's go ahead and remove this drawer. Click on the front of it, click on the delete key, and that removes that. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, well, I'll show you what the effect of this. Let's go back to the accessories and let's choose a cabinet foot from the library. And I'll just grab this Craftsman style cabinet foot, select OK. And you'll see in the preview there is no cabinet foot. And since this sink base is bumped to other cabinets in the run, it's going to put them onto the end of the cabinets. And of course, there's no way that's going to support that. So if this cabinet were the same width of the other cabinets, you would need to place those cabinet feet directly from the library and not from within this panel. So let's make this easy. Let's change the depth of this cabinet to be 26 inches. Press the Tab key. You now see those cabinet feet get displayed. The next option on the Accessories tab is let's grab a front pilaster, go into the library, and I'm just going to grab one of the Chief Architect elements here. And let's see, let's just grab a flat front style. And then we'll also change the dimension of that so that it matches the foot at 4 inches. So you get a preview of that. Select OK. And there is that cabinet. You can use the material eyedropper. Simply click and place that on there and on each of the feet. Now, as I said, you can place cabinet feet directly out of the library. So if that cabinet were the same width and you wanted that directly, you can just go into the library and find that cabinet foot by browsing down into the let's see if we can find it here quickly. So that's actually going to be under Millwork, Cabinet Feet. You can find the foot, and we'll just place that off to the side over here. Actually, let's just place it over in our view. And let's see where that's at in our floor plan. There it is. So I can just place that directly out. So if this cabinet were the same size in our plan view, we go back into that wall elevation. Then I can grab this cabinet foot and slide it into place. Roughly, I think it was 6 inches. Use the copy reflect about tool, find our sink base, and place it that way. So if you find your cabinet feet not being placed, you can place it directly out of the library like I've done there. Let me undo that a couple of times so those cabinet feet are back the way they were originally, so we can talk about our materials list. There we go. And individual cabinet components. If I select this cabinet, and there is a tool down here that has components, and if I click on this, it's going to give me a mini spreadsheet just for that cabinet. So you can see all the components that are being used, beginning with the countertop style, which I've got in EnviroGlass, the cabinet, countertop cap, base cabinet, the material, the color, the Aristocraft Kincaid door style that I've got, knob, etc., all the way down to the sink. And you can price that over here and save that into that particular cabinet. In fact, you could save all of that information in the cabinet and place it in your library and reuse it if it happens to be something that you use frequently, and price it. So if you're going to be pricing cabinets, you can save that pricing right in here. Chief Architect doesn't submit pricing, but we enable you to save your own pricing and or send it out to your manufacturer. So by clicking on that component tab, you can get an individual list for that particular cabinet. Now, if you go into the materials list under the tools, let's calculate this from all floors. This is going to be a spreadsheet of every single item in the plan. And if you scroll down, actually here's the cabinet area, and here's that first cabinet that we were talking about, and it gives you all of the details that you saw, plus all of the other cabinets in there. That's quite a bit of information that could be more than you want. So there is another tool. Let me close this materials list. There is another tool that you can use. Let me close the elevation camera as well. Save that view. Notice that in the plan view I'm using default cabinet labels, and it's like a 3-drawer base 24-inch, pretty standard nomenclature that you might find in the cabinet industry. But you can replace that level of detail if it's more than you want by going to the schedules and isolating just the cabinet schedule. And I'm just going to place this, let's place this over to the side here. First of all, notice as soon as I placed that, it replaced the label with a callout C06, C05, etc. And you can come over here and isolate this cabinet schedule, and you can get the number, the specific label, the quantity, the floor that it's on. I only have one floor, width, depth, height, description, code, manufacturer. If you double click on this, you can control what goes into this schedule. So floor may not be relevant for you, just remove it. And any other information that you want, let's just remove a couple of these things. And modify this cabinet schedule, and then you can get it exactly the way you want and set it up and have your base font and everything you want. Here's an example. This is actually on a 36 by 24 inch sheet of paper, where I have my floor plan, my elevation, and I have my cabinet schedule and my fixture schedule. And that cabinet schedule was generated just like we just did. And I've isolated it down to the room name and a few of the columns that I felt were important. I combine it with my notes and a rendering and material selection that I just clipped out of the program to make it easy for the installation and make sure that everybody is on the same page when the cabinets are installed and ordered. So the cabinet schedule, fixture schedule, door and window schedule can isolate individual components, and then you can place those on your construction drawings. I just kind of place mine next to my floor plan. When we talk about creating this construction style drawing, I'll show you how you can isolate that so that it's nice and clean. I'm going to shift gears and move on to kitchen islands. See, the rendering on your screen is one of our sample plans called the Fire and Ice. And you can download this sample plan, view it, make changes to it, see how we've done it, watch the video. I'm going to explore the process of building an island similar to this and how you can create the details for your drawings. So in the plan view of the Fire and Ice sample plan, I've deleted the island and I'm going to recreate it. Let's begin with our base cabinet, and let's come in here and place a few cabinets. And let's just begin by placing a cabinet or two, resizing it. We'll make an 18-inch cabinet, place another cabinet, we'll leave that at 24 inches, place that cabinet, and one more here. Let's go ahead and resize that to be a 36-inch cabinet. And that looks pretty good. Let's take these two cabinets, and I'm going to use the copy reflect about and place it so that we have a very large island. And then separately, let's grab all of these cabinets, just draw a marquee around it, copy, reflect about this edge, and now I've got the basis of my island. I'm not going to worry about placing the sink and dishwasher in the island to begin with. Let's take a 3D view and see what we have so far. Okay. So here's our basics for our island. And remember, what we're kind of looking for is to create a raised countertop that looks something like this. Go back into our plan view. And for that raised countertop, I'm going to use my countertop tool. Custom countertop, and I'm just going to come in roughly and draw out a custom countertop. I'm going to select this edge and I'm going to snap that to the cabinet box. And if you zoom in, you'll notice that our existing countertop has disappeared. You see how that line just ends? When I drew this custom countertop in place, it comes in at the same height of the other countertop, so it's replaced it. In fact, let's go ahead and just split our screen so you can see what we have going on here. Let me change this view. So you can see that's exactly at the same height. Toggle my camera so it's easier to see. It's at the exact same height. So let's make some modifications to the countertop. Select it, double click to open it, and to begin with, let's change the set height from the countertop, and I'll go ahead and set that to be 40 inches, 40.5 inches at the top, and then I'm going to change the thickness of the countertop to be, let's set that to be 6 inches. And we'll go back here. I think I've got everything I needed. Select OK. And I've created that big block of countertop. Now all I have to do is dimension it. So first of all, I want this to be 12 feet. I click on this edge. I'll get a temporary dimension. There's two ways to resize it. Just click and resize. Or I want to be very exact. I'm going to go ahead and put in 12 feet or 144 inches. And then we'll do the same thing on this edge. I'm going to set that to be 3 feet or 36 inches. And that's how I can position it. Now I probably don't necessarily have this centered, although it's pretty close, but let's slide it a ways so that we know that it's not centered. Using the center tool, I use this all the time. Click on that cabinet, and now we know that countertop is exactly centered over the middle of that cabinet. Let's use our zoom tool and let's zoom into one of these areas down here specifically. If you look at our existing cabinet, I have a rounded countertop, and we're looking right here, rounded edge. And on the new countertop that we drew, the custom countertop, that edge is not rounded. So you can use the chamfer tool and create those round edges. So I can select an edge. And the first time I use this, it's actually the Fillet Two Lines tool. Let's double click on it. When I double click on it, I can then input the radius. So let's say I want a 1-inch radius on that. And now I can simply click on the other edge. And if you zoom in, you see a nice clean edge on that. So you can go around and do that same thing. This countertop edge, there are tools. If I use the Convert Line to Arc, let's zoom out so you can see what we have going on here. You can create really a variety of shapes. And if we select that, you can grab these diamonds, you can pull them out. There's also settings so you can make different changes to that. Hit escape. And you can create really a variety of custom elements with this shaping. And I'll show you a few more of those options when we get into the tub platform. But these tools work very similar to one another in the way you edit them, whether it's a custom countertop or the tub platform. I'm going to use the Polyline Solid tool to create these things. I'm going to undo that and get rid of that arc that we had. So you can see our custom countertop has been placed, and then if you want to go in and add the details that we had for the remaining part of the island, you can do that. I've added seating. I actually cut a hole in the countertop and created a strip bar for this cold climate kitchen, and then placed lighting over it. And the island took maybe another 10 minutes to build, and it's a pretty unique island, and once I'm finished with that, I'm going to want to put that in my library and reuse it. So let's take a look at that process. I'm just going to I'll close my 3D view. Let's remove that island, and I'm just going to draw a marquee around those components we just drew and delete it. Go into my library, and underneath my user catalog under Fire and Ice, again, I save my favorites in folders that may be client-based, so it's easy to remember them. And I'll just scroll down here and find that island. And here's the island from the Fire and Ice. You get a preview of it, and I'll just come over here and click to place that. That's kind of big. Let's just slide over here so we can place it over here, and we'll position it and slide that into place. One trick that I'm doing here is sometimes you want to move something and it will bump up against something. If you hold the control key down while you're holding the mouse button down, you can move it in a free-form way. Otherwise, it will only move right or left and be restricted in your move. Holding the control key down is a very easy way to create and position your element where you want it, maybe just temporarily or briefly. Let's take a 3D view of this. Let's just use our overhead camera. And now you can see that island. And it has all of the components with seating. Here's our sink and our dishwasher, accessories. And all I've done is created that island and placed it in my library. So I would encourage you to do that anytime you've spent much time on something and you think you might reuse it. Let's close this 3D view and go back to our plan view. If I grab this island, let's see if I can get a, let's just pull this label out of the way so we can get this out. Slide that over there. If I highlight this island, you'll notice that I get a temporary dimension. And if I want to position that island exactly, I can come in here and type a dimension in there. Or let me unblock this island so we can reuse it and get individual components. And you'll notice that as I click on these things, okay, it's 54 inches now since it's unblocked. Let's go ahead and highlight that. I can click on that, and let's go ahead and set that to be 48 inches. Simply grab that dimension and type it. So you can easily position that. Again, you can use your dimension tools, use your end-to-end dimension. We'll just zoom in here roughly and draw out a dimension. And notice where this dimension picked up. It went from cabinet box to cabinet box. And if you want to adjust that, just simply click on the diamond, pull it back, and it actually went to the refrigerator. We'll just pull it up, and it went countertop edge, countertop edge. It's at a 1/16 of an inch, so if you want to adjust your dimension so it doesn't go to a 1/16 of an inch, we can remove the default formatting and just set that to the nearest 1/4 inch. So if you can either adjust the dimension to make it exact. There are times that you can't. You can modify the dimension so that it's just rounding the information up. Now here's another tool that I sometimes like to use to display, and that is our kitchen triangle. If I zoom in, you can see that I've created this kitchen triangle just to show my workspace that's in reference to the cook range, the sink, and the refrigerator. Let me show you how to create one of those. It's nice to overlay it on your design. So I'm just going to use my CAD tool, and I'm going to draw a line that would represent the center point of the cook range. And notice, let's see if I can zoom in here. Notice that I actually get a point indicator, very difficult probably to see, that is a triangle, and then I can pull that out and it will be an orthogonal line. So I'm just going to come a little closer to it, and I'm going to use the W on the keyboard. I can also use the line up here out of the menu. So we'll find the midpoint of that cook range. We'll come over here and we're just going to draw a line. Turn that layer on. We're going to draw that line so that it goes down to the midpoint of the refrigerator, roughly. Okay, pick up that snap point. Draw another line by pressing W on the keyboard. Pick up the center point of the sink, come over a little ways, and we'll snap that into place, and then we'll connect the two ends. So I've created this triangle, and it went probably on a default CAD layer. Let's just open this up. And each element that you draw can go on different layers. That went on my CAD default layer. I personally like to put that on a layer, and I'll build a new layer. This is a layer that I've created myself just by simply saying copy, and then I've renamed it and I've built a color. It has a similar color to my appliances, and I'm going to change that to that layer of CAD kitchen and bath. So I've changed that, and we'll select OK. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to show length. That will then display that information on how long each line is. And then let's also do the fill style. I like to do maybe a vertical, actually let's use an angled hatch, and make it transparent. And I'm going to make it just a little bit lighter than the rest of the elements. Select OK, and select OK. And now that's going to display your island. The kitchen and bath guidelines from NKBA recommend that that island not exceed 26 feet in any with the sum of all the legs, and I think also they have recommendations of 48 inches on one leg, and also not to exceed 9 feet on the other leg. So you can make sure that you have that in place. We're close on the 48 inches here. But if we extend that to actually touch the sink, we're probably within that guideline recommendation. And it's nice to be able to overlay that triangle and just show that space. And you saw how we just used align tools, connected them, and then it formed that triangle and then turned on the dimensions. A little while ago we did a wall elevation, and we used our wall elevation camera and just drew through the wall to create that. And this wall elevation in this kitchen already has the details already dimensioned on there. Let's close that. If you do a wall elevation on the island, you're going to actually see, let's go ahead and do it, you're going to actually see the island and the wall behind it. So one trick, well, let me show you a different tool real quick. Another tool you can use is a cross section called backclipped. What that's going to do is that's just going to draw an area you see between my mouse, and it's going to stop at the end of my mouse. So I'm actually not going to see any of the other cabinets on that other side. So you can see just that slice through the design. Now with the backclip cross-section view, you're going to see additional details. You can see the floor, finished floor, and subfloor, which are represented by these two lines. And you're also going to see the sections through the walls. And that works pretty well. In fact, I've already dimensioned and created this camera. If I double click on that backclip cross section, I've already added the dimensions and my call out text. I've got a ceiling detail in here that you can see, and then all their call outs, and then my dimensions. If you don't want to see the finished floor and the subfloor and the wall and that sort of detail, there is another way to do that, and that is to use your wall elevation. Let's go ahead and draw a wall elevation, and you're going to see behind that, if you move back to the floor plan and we highlight that camera, there is a open object information, and you see that there's actually a backclip to backclip it after so much distance. I'm not sure how far I drew that, but let's go ahead and put in something like, let's put in 7 feet, or 84 inches. And you can see that that backclip, I can actually pull it. And when I go into that wall elevation that we've already drawn, it's going to isolate that, and you can then not display the floor. Personally, for an island, I like to see that information. So if you reopen my other camera that I have, it gives you a point of reference, and I like to see that with the detail on there, especially with the ceiling detail and the way that we have that cut away. So the backclip cross-section view will allow you to draw just a slice through your view and see what you're after. However, if you want to use the wall elevation, you can then open that up and choose that backclip distance so that you can isolate a component. When you draw your elevations on your floor plan, you can see that in my case there are callout A, B, and C. When you double click on one of these, you activate that camera and it has the detail behind it. When you create your wall elevation, let's draw a new one through the wall. You'll notice that my camera is saying elevation 9, and in the floor plan view it says E9. So to detail that, click the open button on the camera. You can give it a nice detailed elevation description, and let's just go ahead and call it something like North Wall Cook Range elevation, something that's descriptive for you. Plan display. So if I want to change that from an E9, maybe it's E1 or D, you can display it as a callout. The callout size, in my case, is 16. That's pretty large, perhaps. I found that maybe 12 is a good number. If you want a callout arrow, and so then you can create that view. And then if I save that elevation, Here is that call out, and it's actually a camera. You double click on it. Of course, I don't have dimensions on mine, but that will save that active camera, and that will make it helpful when we send that out for our construction drawings. So again, you can customize those cameras, make it a call out, and make it look to your style that you prefer. This next feature I'm going to show is Premiere only. Premiere has framing in it, and there's a nice detail you can do. If you take a look at the overview of the design that we have, let's just split our screen so we can see both of these. I like to sometimes turn on the framing information. If we build the framing for those walls and turn that layer on, you can see the framing on the right hand side, and on the left hand side in our 3D view, let's just turn on that wall framing display. And then if you toggle the camera style to glass house, you can actually see through that wall. So what you can do, obviously, in your plan view is if you're going to be doing some remodeling and you need to tear out some studs, you can show that. You could colorize these to show the difference in what's going to be added studs or removed studs. The other thing you can do for construction design, let's select one of these walls and let's open up the framing detail for that wall. This is flipped from the wall elevation, so the window's on the other side. And what I want to do is I want to show some wall blocking for the cabinets to be hung on, the wall cabinets. And let's just check our defaults for our framing and make sure that our wall blocking is in line. Sometimes it comes, the default is staggered, but I want it to be inline blocking, so that looks good. So using the wall bridging tool, I can come in here and create some wall bridging and just drag it across where I want that. If I select both of these elements, double click on them, I'm going to change this from basically revert it to make it a 2x6, and then we'll run our dimension. I'll just change my annotation plans, which will also drive my dimension defaults to framing. And then we'll use an end-to-end dimension and drag this out, pull this over, so that can either go to the floor or to the top plate, either one. And if you double click on that dimension, let's go ahead and set up a secondary format. And for the secondary format, let's make it in inches. And we'll just remove those leading zeros. And I can just select my blocking and highlight that and type in 80 inches. And now I can take this wall detail, print that out, hang it on the wall where the framers are. I'll make sure that absolutely that wall blocking occurs, and it's just a reminder to me and an added detail for the framers to make sure that that blocking is available to hang my wall cabinets on. Again, that's a Premiere feature, and it can be useful for adding detail or doing remodeling projects like this. I'm going to talk a little bit about interior design. The image you see on your screen is a nice kitchen. It might look like a just finished kitchen from a nice parade home or builder home. And the difference between this scene and the previous scene is this one's fully accessorized and probably going to help you sell your portfolio and your designs a little easier. Let's talk about the elements that go into this, along with seating, the electrical, the background image through the windows, art on the wall, and accessories on the countertop. For interior design, let's begin with the library browser. There are tens of thousands of items in the library browser, which you'll find both in the core library and the bonus catalogs. In the bonus catalogs, those are downloaded from the 3D library. They're broken out by category, and there's lots of great content that ends up getting posted up here on a monthly basis. So as we explore, first of all, the core catalog library, in the interiors folder underneath furniture, there are beds, desks, tables, dining room table sets, and you can come in here and you can pick the different sets that we have available. And all you have to do to find these items, let's go ahead and grab one of these, is click and place those items in the design. And again, you can come in here and you can dimension these objects from the wall surface. You can unblock these objects by using the unblock command, and you can modify these things. Looks like that layer is very gray on my element. Let's go ahead and turn that on to black so we can see it a little better. Once you've unblocked these items, you can modify them. You'll notice that I've twisted my bar stools at an angle. So you can delete items. You can grab this table. If you double click on it, you have the ability to completely size every furniture item that you have. So again, if you have a client that's going to be bringing a furniture item to their next remodel or new house, make sure you measure those key pieces of furniture, grand piano, whatever it is, and make sure that you then appropriately plan for space and add those items in there. So let's finish browsing down through the library. I want to make sure that you're aware of all of the components, whether it's individual or grouped items. Down into the bonus catalog, if we scroll down, you're going to find event planning items, somewhat random, fabric and wallpaper items, garage accessories, grouped bathrooms, grouped furniture. So hutches, seating, grouped islands. We ship a number of islands, grouped kids rooms. So it's quite a large collection of objects. And then of course there are the manufacturer catalogs that have their components in there as well. Familiarize yourself with a library and use these things. You'll also find space planning elements. Scroll down, I think that's under our bonus item. Once we find our space planning items, these are just CAD blocks. So if you want to place a CAD block to give you, let me just delete this table that we'd previously placed. And if we place a very large table in here, turn that layer on, you can see the typical space required and dimensions. And all this is a CAD block to help understand spacing. The library is a big container of things, and if you use it to your advantage, you can use the search tool. I like to save and create my own folders. You come down to the bottom here is my user catalog, and I like to save my own favorites folders, and typically by project. It makes it easy for me to find things. And if you're going to design something, I ended up creating my own table for this design, and I did it just with our CAD tools. I just came in here, drew out the tabletop. All this is a polyline solid. Set the dimensions, perhaps 84 by 42 on the dimension. Open that up, elevation at the top for your table. We'll set it at 38 inches and the thickness at 4 inches. And let's draw one leg out so that when we go into our 3D view, I'll just draw a leg real quickly for you. Again, elevation at top, we'll set that to be 34 inches and the thickness at 4. And if we take a 3D view, let's just grab our camera. That's the beginning of our table. And I have to change the materials on it, but looks like I didn't quite drag that out far enough. And so I can easily make that table, use a material eyedropper, pick up material off of one component and apply it on there. And you can make your own furniture, group it, and save it to the library. Let me just delete that, and I'll just grab that table that I've already built out of my library and show you the way that looks. So I built it as both an 8-foot table and a 6-foot table. I'll just slide over here into my plan view and place that table. Let's actually place our 6-foot table. Slide that in front of the window, go back into our 3D view. And so I've changed the materials of the table, I found individual seating, and I placed it and arranged it. And then I individually selected or marquee drew around all of those components, created a block, and added it to my library. So a great way to create your own portfolio and your own collection. Back to the completed scene, you can see my dining table. I put a nice chandelier in and some artwork and some background. If you go to our 3D library, let me just open that up real quick. Here's some chandeliers, and again that would go into your bonus category. I saved one of my favorite lights into my favorite library. So if you scroll down into my lighting area, here's my light. That's actually easier to place in our plan view. Let's go ahead and we'll just center that. You notice my indicator, and we'll turn that layer on. And I've placed my chandelier again back into the 3D view, and you can see where that's at. I need to pull that down and bump it into the ceiling. And so browse into the library, find what you want, and place it. For artwork on the wall, these are little details that can help you sell the job. So let's go ahead and add some artwork on the wall. For the artwork on the wall, under the accessories, you'll find mirrors and frames. I don't necessarily like some of these, but let's just grab one that looks interesting. Narrow frame, Mona Lisa. I'll place that on the wall. So I'm going to set the dimensions of this to 48 by 32 and get a large frame. Let's just pull it down, reposition it. Material eyedropper off of the window casing. Turn off our stain mode and we'll paint that frame. And now I want to make this relevant to the style that is for the design or the liking of the customer. And you can go to websites. I frequently use a website called art.com. And of course you give them credit. They have their watermark logo on there. That's good. And I will grab one of their images that is appropriate for the design, save it into my library, and let's go back into the program. And I've actually saved that into the library. All I have to do is right click on the image, save to library. And one setting that I do mark with my materials, let's open up that material. And here's the artwork that I'm after. If you take a look at this, the one thing that I do mark is stretch to fit. And you can set that setting right here under the texture panel and stretch to fit. That way it won't tile it. It's one large image across the surface that you apply it to. So now, once I have that in my library, I can just come in here and click and apply that. Very easy to create that same look. The backdrop. Right now I have nothing through the window, and I've done basically the same thing. I found a backdrop that was similar to where we're going to build this house, and I've grabbed that backdrop, and all I have to do is click and apply that into the design, and now you can see that it gives it a more realistic view. And if we were to create the ray trace rendering of that, this is ultimately the way it's going to look. With that backdrop, that is something that you can use with your camera or your phone. Stand outside of the particular lot, snap a photo, import it into your library, and just drag it into the window just like we did. Personalized touch, make it relevant to the client's site. The next interior element we're going to add is a wall covering. I have a sample open called the Steam Relax Bath. And again, this is a sample you can download from the website under User Center, Samples Gallery. And here's the Steam Relax Bath. You can download both the plan and the how-to video. It can help you understand more intricate design elements that we're going through in this guideline and tips video. So back into the program, if we want to create this backsplash area or wall covering on this back wall, I've temporarily removed it so we can go through the steps required to create it. And if I open up the program, and let's just take an overview. Let's use a camera and we'll just shoot towards that back wall. You can see that we don't have anything on there. And actually sometimes it's easy just to open up the individual wall elevation. We can isolate that wall. And if I click on the wall, first of all, when I click, sometimes it will get the room, which allows us to modify the ceiling and other components. And you can tell by the lower left-hand section of your screen it would say room down here. If I press tab, now it's got the 3D wall editor. Now I can double click and open that. And under wall coverings, I'm just going to go in, choose a wall covering. I've saved one of my favorite materials in here under this Steam Relax Bath. Under the tile, choose that. And then you can come in here and specify the height. Let's put the floor to bottom at 0. And we'll change the height to something around 58 inches. And select OK. And now that's going to apply a wall covering for us. Again, a nice added detail that you can take a look at. Here it is back in the 3D view. And again, if we were to render that in ray trace mode, this is more what it looks like. Let's explore a little bit about the electrical. In this scene we have can lights, we have pendant lights, and we have wall sconces. If I toggle back over to our program, I've got my floor plan view up that has dimensions, some of the callouts for the elevation views, and it's really my floor plan guide. In the program there is the concept of layers, and in this layer display you can go down through and choose what you want to be displayed. And right now if I scroll down to electrical, you'll notice there's no check marks down this column, so none of my electrical is on. If I wanted to display my electrical, I could put a check mark in some of these components and it would turn on and I'd be able to see it. But I like to have a clean floor plan and not have electrical on my floor plan. The concept of a layer set is a collection of different filters of these layers. And right now my layer set is the kitchen and bath set, mainly for my floor plan. If I change my layer set, and you can create your own custom ones, the program will ship with default ones, but I typically like to grab one of those that I like and use that as a basis and make my own version of that. Save it to my profile plan, and then going forward for all my plans I have specific layers and layer sets that I can use. So I'm going to change my layer set to electrical, and that's going to turn all electrical on. Now I only have a couple of electrical items in the plan right now. And if you go back into the layer display and we go back down to electrical, notice all the check marks are on. So this is a quick way to toggle between different views without spending a lot of time turning things on or off. That's the concept of a layer and a layer set, which is a collection of saved layers. So with my electrical set on, let's go in and I'm going to place an electrical can, and my default light out of my drop down is an electrical can. You can also browse into the library and find all of your electrical components in the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, and you can find these components in there. Under electrical you'll find more of the things that go on the wall, more mechanical related, and then you'll find architectural items in the interior section. Sorry, make that the architectural section. You can go into lighting, and then as well in the Chief Architect bonus catalogs you'll find more lighting. So with the electrical can selected, I'm just going to come in here roughly and place a can. And I like to save myself some time, and I like to decide exactly how far I want this lighting. I'm going to make this a little tight just to show you the example that I want to be able to use. First of all, if I select this light and I use this tool called multiple copy, and I double click on this multiple copy interval, I can specify a dimension. So let's go ahead and put in 48 inches, and I'm going to talk about this secondary offset in just a minute. I'm going to just set that to a smaller number at 38 inches as an example. So with this electrical light selected, I can now drag these out and it will be every 48 inches, and it makes it easy to create that. I'll delete that last light. Now you notice that I put in a secondary. Let me remove those lights. Let's go back into that multiple copy. I put in a secondary offset of 38 inches. This is a bathroom. It's pretty small. I probably wouldn't use 2 rows of can lights in this case. But let's say that it's a larger room like a kitchen, and I'm going to use this secondary offset, and it's going to make it quick for me to drag my lights out. First, I'm going to hold down my right mouse button, and for those of you that are using a Mac with just a trackpad, I believe it is the control key you can hold down. But I'm going to hold down my right mouse button. Then I'm going to come down without holding any button and click. That creates an array of elements. So right click and drag, and then let go. Move your mouse down without any buttons. When you're finished, click, and you can quickly place those lights. Let me use my electrical, and let's surround those lights, and we'll just temporarily remove them, and let's pull these down just a little bit. So multiple copy and then a multiple copy array with the secondary offset will allow you to quickly space and place your lights. Now in the electrical, I'm going to choose a switch. I'm going to put a switch on the wall here, and I'm going to come down and I'm going to put a switch over here on the wall. With the circuit tool, I'm going to come in and connect these elements. Just click and drag and place it on the last switch here. Now if I zoom in, you notice what happens when I connect that final switch. It will automatically update that to a 3-way switch. If it doesn't, you may have missed actually connecting it on one of these. So this is the default circuit. I don't really care for the way it looks, so I'm going to modify this, and if I click this diamond I can pull this out. And one of the tips that I like to do is when I click on these, I actually like to hold the control key down, and it gives me added flexibility for exactly how that's going to look. And I like to clean these up so they're kind of nice, smooth arcs. And if you want to get a little fancier, you can come out here. There's actually a tool called the break tool. This works for any CAD object. We can put a break or two in this line segment, and that allows us to get a little bit more crazy with the circuit. So you can be a little bit more artistic with that. The key to that is holding the control key down and then bending it slightly till you get the desire you want. So this begins to form the foundation of the electrical plan. In the dimension defaults, actually let's talk about annotation sets. Annotation sets are only in Premiere, and it's a collection of defaults. You'll notice that with this drop down I have several annotations selected. Let's go in and choose our electrical annotations. If you're using interiors, you can do the same thing by choosing your dimension defaults and choosing it to be electrical. And the annotation set is nothing more than a collection of all of these elements. Again, just a few more clicks to make all of those changes. With my annotation set, I'm going to use my electrical dimension tool for centerline. We'll choose our centerline dimension and we'll come in here and place those dimensions. My default was in feet. Again, if you want to override that or change it, you can come in here and let's modify that to be inches. You can set that to be the default so you can make it that way. And if I want this last center line to go to the wall, grab the extra diamond here, click on the edge of the wall, and I've got it. And then we can run one more center line from this wall to this dimension. And I picked up that cabinet. Again, if you want to pull that diamond off, you can just simply pull it off. And then we'll pull that onto the light. And I've got that dimension on there. Again, change that from the default to inches. Again, it would be easier to set it as your default so you don't have to do that. So you can go through and create all of the dimensioning for your electrical. And before we create our construction documents, I'm going to show you a more detailed example of electrical plan, floor plan, and things that you would expect to send out to your construction documents. Notice in my bathroom here I have a soffit that is above the bath vanity. And inside that bath vanity, one of the things we have is an electrical can. And Chief Architect's pretty intelligent. If I grab my can tool and let's just place a couple of lights in this soffit, and we go back in and take a 3D view. Let's use our floor camera and we'll just drag that camera in the room. Notice that the can lights automatically snap to that soffit. So in some cases it will do things automatically for you. In other cases you may need to lower the lights. If I place these pendant lights, which came out of the library, those will automatically snap to the soffit. If I put them in before, if I put those lights in before I decided to put the soffit, I may have to move them down, but all you have to do is click on the light, press the tab key, and you can grab that center move handle, the bigger one. See my cursor changes to a 4-plex arrow, and you can just simply adjust it and pull it down where you want to, or you can also pull it up and adjust to the stretch values and make those modifications like that. And while I'm in this view, notice how I'm rotating around. I'm getting that mirror reflection. If you go into the preference settings and you go into render, there is an option in here to use reflections in mirrors and also to show shadows. And if you turn those two things on, if I turn that reflection off, all I'm going to see, or turn that option for mirror reflections, I'm just going to see a gray dull option in that render. But if you have reflections on, that's where you can turn that on and off. Bathtub platforms are pretty common, and you typically would see those in many of the bathrooms. I'm going to go through the steps involved with that. You'll notice in the right side of the screen here there's a more elaborate steam shower bath with a very shapely bed for the steam shower. If you want to learn more about that, the video on the steam relaxed bath will walk you through the exact details of how to create shapes like that. But they're all going to be using the same tools that we create the tub platform with. Let's go back into the program. And I've removed the tub out of the design. Let's go through the process. The first thing is I'm going to place the bathtub. And this is an overflow tub. And I'm roughly going to place that tub where I want it. I'm going to set my dimensions and figure out exactly where I want that before I begin my tub platform. And I've looked at the specs for the tub. This is actually a Kohler tub that I've placed. And I know what the rough cutout needs to be, the platform, and all those kinds of things. With that information, I'm going to use this tool called the Polyline Solid. And I'm going to come in here, snap to the corner, and roughly create this tub shape. And let's go ahead and turn that on. And you'll be able to see, let's just delete these extra light components. Those are our wet lights. Let me just turn those off for the time being. You'll be able to see what we're doing here. And if I double click on that polyline solid, it's actually under the floor. You see that the elevation at the top is 0. I'm going to set that to 22 7/8. And I'm going to also type that same value in as the thickness. That's pretty much going to bury our tub. And that creates the main platform for that tub. Now what I'm going to do is use the exact same tool, Polyline Solid tool, and I'm going to come in here and snap right around the tub. And again, you can't see anything. If I select that, notice that I've clicked here and I actually got the tub. I know that by looking in the bottom left-hand corner of my screen. It says Interior Fixture. Press the Tab key, and now you'll notice that that status bar in the lower left-hand changed to Polyline Solid. Double-click to open that, and there's an option here that says Hole in Polyline Solid. When I select OK, take a look at what happened to our tub in 3D. It actually cut that hole out of the tub. Now, all I really need to do is, in the 3D view, use my material eyedropper, grab the material that I want, and I can click and place that on the element. So it's pretty easy to create a tub platform. If you want to grab these things, shape them, again, you'll find a variety of tools. You use the brake tool down here in the lower left-hand corner. You can put a brake in here and create some different styles and shapes for all of your items, including, if we reorient our camera here just a little bit, actually let's bring that view up. You notice that we actually created that shower bed using the same tools, but I did it in an elevation view. And again, take a look at the video on the steam relaxed bath if you'd like to learn more about that. The next step we're going to explore is in the shower and creating a tile pattern. In this shower, you'll notice that there's two styles of tile, both a strata rock and then a marble tile that go in between there. And I want to have that tile pattern for the installer to do. So let's explore that with a wall elevation. Let's proceed and take a look at our shower. I'll create the room for the shower using a glass wall, and then we'll create the tile on the wall, which is really kind of the main point I want to make sure you understand how to do. Let's go back into the program, and I've created an area in this corner, plan view on the left and our 3D view on the right, of this alcove that we're going to create our shower in. So using the wall tool, I'm going to use an interior straight wall. Let's double click on our wall defaults, and I'm going to change my interior wall. I have a lot here, but one of the walls that you can select is the glass shower wall. If you click Define, I've got this set up to be 1/2 inch. If you're using 3/8 or another dimension for it, you can easily come in here and make those changes. Now when I drag out my interior wall, it is the glass wall type. Now notice as I'm dragging this out, I'm getting a dimension, and I can use that to approximate. If I press the Tab key here, and since I'm going from right to left, I'm going to put a negative number in, but I'm just going to put in 50 inches. That allows me to be very precise in my dimensioning. Then I'm going to come in here and create a 45, and then we'll enclose that. And once I'm finished, notice that it encloses a room, and then my room already has a default material in there. And by naming your rooms, actually this already got named because I'd had a shower there previously, but you can choose the type of room here and the room name. And then in the Structure tab, I haven't talked about this before, but you can set your ceiling height. I'm using it's 109 1/8, but really my finished ceiling, by the time you separate out the finished floor and the sheetrock, is 107 5/8. So that'd be my finished floor dimension that I would end up dimensioning to in an elevation view. So I have the basic room. We can place our door in this area. Let's grab a hinge door, and we'll just simply place the door. Notice that if I can place on this side, move my mouse, the door moves that way, place the door and it moves that way, or I can move it off to the side and place it either way. So I've placed the door. You'll also find down in the menu bar, toolbar, change the hinge side opening, and you can click and drag that either way. And we need to make some changes because that's a solid door. So let's go ahead and open this door up. And first of all, let's change the width to be, let's say, 32 inches. And let's change the door style to be a slab door. And on the casing, let's not use interior casing, a sill or threshold. And on the hardware, I like to change the hardware on those. If you come in on the library, let's see if I can find quick hardware. I may have actually saved one in my favorites folder here. Let's see if we can find one real quick. Cabinet hardware, I don't have one there. So let's just search for pull. See if I can find one quickly. Okay, we'll just use something like that. And we'll do the same thing on the exterior handle. Oh, I got a different one. That's okay. And now the last thing I need to do actually is change the thickness. I think we said our glass wall is 1/2 inch. So let's change the door thickness to 1/2 inch, and that will match. And with the eyedropper tool, let's eyedropper off the glass and click and apply it on there. And that's how you can set your glass door. Let's fix that hardware real quick. So on the hardware, let's go in and just use the pull handle. That should fix that. Okay. It's not ideal, but that's quick and dirty. I can browse through the library and find a different style. Now for the wall, let's take a wall elevation and do our tile style. So let me close this 3D view. One more thing actually, let's open up that door. There's actually quite a few options you can do with this door. One of the options is to have it swing both directions. If you have it with a fixed glass on one side, you can mark that it would right swing only. If I change some of those settings, there's actually quite a few settings in here to make that change. Now you can see the way that that's going to adjust. You can define the way it looks in your plan view and do it that way. Let's open up our wall elevation, and let's just do this particular wall here. So I'm just looking, let me toggle my plan view. We're just looking at this wall right here. So it's isolated that area, and there are two tools that can be used. One is the Polyline Solid tool, and that's the same tool that we use to create our tub platform, and there's no reason you can't use that. The other one is the Backsplash tool, and they both work very similar. I'm somewhat impartial, and I would end up choosing the Backsplash tool to draw that. So to do that, I'm just going to come in here roughly and create my first area. You notice, I don't know if you can see that, but see how it's breaking? That's where the glass is getting cut off. So I'm just going to release that where the first one is, and then I'm going to take that and I'm going to create a copy of it. I'm going to slide that up. Actually, before I do that, let's set our dimension. Let's make that exactly 40 inches. And I'm going to take and make a copy of that, and we're just going to slide it up. And let's set the dimension of that to be, this is our spacing, we'll set that to be 8 inches. We'll move the whole thing down. And let's pull this down to be Let's make that 28 inches. And let's make one more copy of this. Slide that up. And actually, what did we say that was? 8 inches? Let's set that to be 8 inches. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to reflect it around if I can. Well, I can't get it in that case. So we'll just copy that and pull it down, snap it into place. Maybe I didn't hit the right copy tool. Okay, there we go. And, oh, I did get it. There we go. Let's go ahead and snap that to the ceiling. And looks like I need to pull that up just a little bit and snap it. Okay, so it's difficult to see the different tile patterns. Let's go ahead and let's go into our 3D view here. And let's paint some materials on here so we can begin to create the different view of it. So let's zoom in, use our eyedropper tool, click towards the bottom. There's my first tile, and then we'll click up a little higher. There's my second tile. And finally, let's click up towards the top, and there's the next tile pattern. Eyedropper off of the floor. If I can zoom in there and get that, not the glass, we'll grab that section, and we'll grab that section. So now I've used the backsplash tool. I drew a backsplash on the bottom, and then I replicated that up and created the other copies and made the inset tile 8 inches. So if I want to come over here in update our wall elevation, you can see the tile texture that has been updated in that view. And if I want to take and replicate that for the other wall, probably what I would do is, if you zoom in here, you can actually see, let's see if I can highlight it for you. Well, I probably can't, but I can actually isolate that in this view, and if I hold my marquee down around that, I should be able to select it, and I got 5 objects. That's all of the backsplashes on that wall. I'm going to hit my copy tool, and I'm going to come over here and paste that over on this wall. And let's see if I can highlight that and rotate it around. I don't see my rotate button. Let's pull it over here. Well, it's not giving me a rotate button. So let's see if we can open this up. No, I can't get it. So let me come up with a different approach to grab that. Okay, I've got the backsplash on the other wall. So one advantage to using the Polyline Solid for that tile inlay is it's easy to copy and rotate them. The backsplash tool doesn't appear that you can copy and rotate in an easy fashion. So maybe just one advantage to using that tile inlay with using the Polyline Solid tool here. And speaking of the Polyline Solid, let's just go in and create our bench real quick, and using the Polyline Solid in the plan view, we'll just come in here and snap out, turn on that layer, get our temporary dimension, and so maybe our bench depth at 18 inches, and then if we double click on it, we can set the elevation at top. Let's just set that at 18 and 18 for the thickness. Select OK, and then all you have to do is then use your material eyedropper in this view. Click on the material that you want to use, either the marble, or we could grab the stone and place that bench in there. Again, if you want to do a more sophisticated bench, I've used the Polyline Solid in an elevation view and simply created a shape with the using create line, convert line to arc. And just take a look at the Steam Relax bath video found on the samples page, and you can download that plan as well. Let's take a look at our custom ceilings in Chief Architect. Ceilings are derived from roof planes, meaning that the envelope below the roof must be congruent and support the type of ceiling you want. And there are a variety of different ceiling styles you can create. Here's an example of maybe a coffer and a tray and a vault. Let's explore how that works in the program. Let's just create a rectangular structure here. And let me just connect that wall up. It was a little sloppy on that. And if I double click on the Build Roof tools, let's create a 8 and 12 pitch roof. And if you take a 3D overview, you can see what that looks like in a 3D view. And you can toggle on the glasshouse view and you can actually see through it. So to create a vaulted ceiling, in this case, I'm going to have to create both of the ends of this structure as a gable. So let's go ahead and toggle that to a gable. We'll rotate around. And I can either do it through the shortcut of selecting the wall and pressing the toggle button, or if I double click on the wall, there is an option in here under the roof panel to say full gable wall. So either way. Now let's use our back clip cross section view and just create a slice inside this design so we can see. Close our camera view. And when you enclose the four walls, it creates a room, and the default is a flat ceiling. And one quick way to show a vaulted ceiling, if we tile our views, is to simply click inside the room here, and if you remove the ceiling out, it will remove that flat ceiling plane. And you now have a vaulted or cathedral style ceiling. And that's great and may help you sell the job, but if you plan on building it or supporting that with insulation, it's probably going to be a little thin. So let's take a look at the custom ceiling tools in the program, and let's use the ceiling plane, and let's just come in here and we'll roughly create, we'll turn that automatic roof off, and you can come over here and see what I've started with that ceiling plane. Now when we built our roof, we built that at 8 and 12, so let's take this ceiling plane here and let's adjust the roof pitch. So I'm going to lock the outside bottom height, and let's change that pitch down to, let's say, a 6 and 12 pitch. And you can see that then adjust, and I can now stretch that out to the gable, copy, reflect around the center of the room, and now you can see I now have that cavity for the vault. And you'd want to finish editing this and stretch it all the way down to both ends of the room. If I select both of these roof planes with a shift click and I open them up, let's go ahead and again lock the outside bottom height, change the pitch down to something like 3 and 12, so pretty shallow. And then there is a curved option, and I can make that a curved or barrel roof. At the ridge, change that to 0 so that it's exactly level, and select OK. And now you can see in your cross-section view you now have a barrel style ceiling. There are lots of different ways you can create ceilings. If you want to create a tray ceiling, you can also use soffits to create that and put a molding in there. There's also more advanced ceilings. If you want to design more advanced ceilings, here's an example with a raised ceiling in the center with a concentric cutout and molding that stair steps up. So there are a lot of things you can do with the ceiling tools and really add some sophistication into the design. Stair tools, you can create a variety of shapes and styles of stairs in Chief Architect. Here's an example of a few. Here's an example of an entryway with a starter tread, and of course then we also do ramp tools. Let's build a second floor for this house, and if we go up and build a new floor, and we'll just leave the ceiling at 8 feet or 97 1/8 inches, and let's just make sure that our roof's on there. There we go. Okay, so we've got a very tall house and we need to get a set of stairs in between the two platforms. So let's take a look at the way the process works. And there's a few different ways. One, let's toggle our view so you can actually see what's going on. Let's begin with by clicking and placing our stairs. Actually, let's go down to the main floor, it'll be easier. And let's pull out our walls so we have plenty of room on both. There we go. So if I click and place the stairs, you'll notice that if we rotate around, our stairs go and they automatically reach between the two platforms. And if I highlight the stair and hold the Alt key down, you can actually bend the stairs and create a curved set of stairs. You'll also find a tool specifically for curved stairs, but you can always hold the Alt key down and make those click. If you're going to create, let me just delete these. If you're going to create a split set of stairs, you can first drag up, and let's see if we can just do a dollhouse view here. Pull that over. Okay. And we'll go over 90 degrees and drag up. Let's go ahead and bump that a little bit closer. As long as they're relatively close, you notice that the two stairs actually are sitting on the floor. And when I click in between them with the stair, it's automatically going to heal that and create a landing in between. So it's very handy, and you don't have to be too accurate to do it. The other thing that we can do, let's go ahead and undo that. Let's drag one more set of stairs in here, and I'll show you how to create a set of winders. And so I'm just going to drag another stair segment, and I'll pull this over here just a little bit. And with this last stair, I'm just going to bend that around, and then let me just delete that. It'll be easier just to drag another set of stairs up. And so it's not quite a winder, but as soon as I grab this, and let's go ahead and use our move handle, bump it to the wall. And the move handle I'm looking for is the fourplex. Bump it to the other wall, and then if I double click and open that, there is an option right here for winders, and it will then fill in that space with a winder. So quite a few options with the stairs. And if you go back into your full overview, one of the things that you'll notice is there is no opening stairwell to get between the two platforms. So I can simply highlight the stair, and there is an option down here to create an automatic stairwell in the bottom of your screen. Click that automatic stairwell, and it will automatically create that opening. If we go up to the second floor here, you can see the stairwell, and one of the things that we can do is actually adjust that stairwell. Let's go ahead and we'll just delete that curve, and we'll connect that over. And so we could technically create an entire opening of that stairwell. And again, back into an overview, you can see exactly the way that stairwell is. But it will form the stairwell automatically to the shape, and then you can modify it. And remember too, if you double click on the stairs and you want to change that handrail or newels and balusters railing on the wall on the left, or on the right for that matter, since there is no wall there, you can just remove that and take off that railing. Lots of different things you can do with the stairs. Let's talk about headroom. Let me just place this CAD block over here so we can just illustrate. There's about 500 different CAD blocks, more so in the Premiere version than the interior version. But here's a typical CAD detail that you'll find in the program. And this is going to give you an idea what the minimum headroom is at 6'8", this typical code, what the riser max and min might be. And if we want a minimum headroom, to make sure we do that and show that in the section view, let's go ahead and toggle off our grid so we can see that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use the W on the keyboard, and I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to draw a line. And with my dimension tool, I'm going to use an end-to-end dimension, and I'm going to come down here and I'm going to highlight that line, and I'm going to type in 6'8". So we know that that's the minimum headroom. And if I draw another line, see if we can make that parallel. There's a make parallel tool to the stairs. I'm going to bump that onto the nose of the tread. And where this line intersects effectively is where that 6'8" headroom is. So it's about at that tread, give or take. So that means that effectively, if I draw another line here, I could bring that landing back. Let's use our point-to-point dimension tool. I could bring that landing back 2'8" to maximize the floor space on the second floor. And very easy to do. If we go up to our second floor and I select this wall, I can just simply pull that back 2'8", and if I'm pulling that back, I can just press my tab key, minus 2'8", 32 inches. Go back into our cross-section view. That's pretty much exactly maximized space on that headroom. This is a detail that you can use in your construction drawings to show your headroom, and you can then place the details that we have in here if you want to augment that for your construction drawings. Again, there's about 500 CAD details, a few more in the Premiere version than the interiors version. Now, the final section of the process is really to create your construction drawings. And there's a few that I have up here on the screen. This is actually a large format sheet, 36 by 24, where I've actually been able to get the floor plan, elevations, renderings, schedules on there. There are other examples that you can find. Again, this is just this is a half-inch scale, so it's 11 by 17. With a single wall, and then added a couple of renderings in there, and maybe a floor plan view with some notes on it. Let's explore how the process works. We've done all the work to really create the construction drawings, and now we just have to execute that. Let me close this view, and I've opened up a sample plan set from the Riverstone. It's a full plan set, but I'll just go through a couple of these pages. And on this page is our floor plan set. And then let's just skip ahead to page 7 so you don't have to see all of these. Here's the kitchen set, and then there should be a bath set. And then there's a few other elevation views of the interiors, door and window schedule. So let me close this layout, and let's open up a brand new layout. So I'm going to open up a new layout. And when you open up a layout, let's just start a brand new layout. File, new layout. You can define from your layout template either a 24 by 36 or 11 by 17 or anywhere in there between. And when you're on page 0 inside of a layout sheet, that's effectively considered your title sheet, your master sheet. Everything on this sheet will display on every single page. And in some cases it might be a macro. This is a page number in here, so as you page through it, it'll automatically create page numbers for you. And you can place your company logo, title blocks, everything you would expect. So page 0 is considered the master sheet, and that typically would not print. So anything on this sheet, it would be specific to your plan. I've gone to page 1, and let's go back to our floor plan. And if I send this entire floor plan out to the layout sheet, let's go ahead and just do this. File, send to layout. And this is where you can define what the scale, well, first of all, what page you're going to send it to on the layout, what the scale is, and a lot of times this make copy of layer set is checked. I would encourage you to turn that off. Just try to make use of the existing layers that we already have, and I'm going to go through a little bit more of that, but I would encourage you just to turn that off. It can get more difficult managing all the different layers that may have. So normally a kitchen and bath designer would send it out at 1/2 inch scale. Let's send that out at 1/4 inch to begin with, and that fills the page pretty well. If I skip ahead to page 2, and let's go back to our floor plan, and let's send that back out to send a layout, and let's try it at 1/2 inch, and then we'll try to crop in and isolate on one of the rooms here. Yeah, it's pretty big. So if I got this viewport and I want to isolate the kitchen, zoom out here, and we'll see if we can just isolate the kitchen area. You see how I just click on the components of that, and then I can isolate a particular view. And so I've been able to get, for the most part, the kitchen view. And if you have a very large plan and you want to isolate that, that's one great way to be able to dial in. I haven't modified it. I've only cropped in on the viewport so you can see that. Back into the floor plan, I've got some active cameras here. Here's my kitchen wall elevation. If I double click on this camera and I activate that, I can now choose to send a layout. Again, we can set our scale. Let's change it to 1/2 inch. I'm going to send it also to page 2. And then go back over to the layout sheet. And we'll just grab that layout and pull that over here. And then if I want to grab an image, I can pull in an image from, let me just copy one here of that particular kitchen. So I have it on my second monitor. I'm just going to drag it into the design, and now I can simply come over here and crop that to about the size that I want. It needs to be a little smaller. So I can combine that with image, elevation views, and floor plan view. Now, with our text tools, let's go ahead and put in a marker. And I can come over here and place this marker and text above the line. Let's put in a kitchen wall elevation. And if I wanted to put in 1/2 inch equals 1 foot for the scale, and then we'll change the marker radius to be, let's change it to be at least 1/4 inch. And then you can drag that line out and add the detail that you want. You can also change that and make the color navy and add the font to your element. So if you want to change the text style, let's change that to one of the Blueprint fonts that ships with Chief Architect. See if I can find that quickly. Here's Chief Blueprint. And again, we might increase that slightly. Change our text color to a navy. And we can also change that callout marker to the same navy. And so you can add those markers in there and detail out your designs. Let's go to page 3 of our layout and back to our floor plan. So let's change this to our kitchen and bath layer set. Now remember, we've been talking about layers and layer sets. So if I change this to the kitchen and bath set, that's only going to turn on certain things. And you'll notice that my dimensions in here are very specific. And if we want to send this area of the master bath and closet area to page 3, we'll just simply come in here, send to the layout, sheet 3, change the scale to 1/2 inch. Yep, and we're going to isolate that because we want to just come in here approximately. I'll zoom way out. Wow, that's a big design. And I'm just pulling on those handles to create the view that I'm after. There we go. And back to our floor plan. Let's activate our main wall elevation here. Double click on the camera and we'll send that out to the layout. Again, sheet 3 at a 1/2 inch scale. Back over to the layout and we'll just pull that elevation over. And again, I'd add that text callout marker. Maybe another image of the bathroom. Let's see if I can find that. So I found a watercolor rendering. We'll just drop that in and resize it. And then you can format that page the way you want. Let's go back to our floor plan and let's change our layer set to the electrical set. Now remember, when I change layer sets, all it's doing is toggling on different sets of layers on and off. So if I change that to the electrical set, again, all it did is go into the layer display options and turn on different things, turn off different things, and it's just a collection of those settings. So it makes it very quick to do your work. So this is just my electrical plan for the design. And now I can send that to our layout. And I'm going to send this one at a 1/4 inch to page 4. And here's our electrical. We can center that on the page if we want, add some text and legend. If you open up the finished product, I added a legend here. So I added a legend off to the side with all of the electrical symbols that I've done. And then I added my notes. There's a collection of notes and legends you'll find built into the program. And for the electrical legend, one of the little tricks that I do, sometimes these electrical objects require that they snap to a wall, and I will draw a very thin room divider or invisible wall, and then I can connect those on there each time I use a different symbol, and just kind of keep that off to the side. Then I have that electrical legend that I can use. So I sent my electrical, a couple of floor plans and elevations. Once I've done that, to reactivate any of the views right to the layer set, I can just double click on that, make any changes. Let's say we come over here and we move this smoke detector from the left to the right. We close it, update it. Notice that that smoke detector automatically updated. So the plan and your construction drawing and the layout sheet are always up to date, especially if you just double click on it through the layout and update it that way. So cycling through the different layout sheets, let's go back to the other pages here, is pretty easy because you've already done the work typically. This is the last step in the process, and it can be very fast and efficient to then collect your drawings. You can organize your drawings, and I think you'll find that once you've gone through the process once or twice, you'll get a format you can build to and then always send those kinds of layouts to the those camera shots to the layout sheet. I hope you found the video helpful. These are tips and guidelines for kitchen and bath designers. If you don't happen to be a customer of Chief Architect yet, just go out to our website. At the bottom of the website you can download a free trial version. And a lot of the sample plans that I've been using today are in our samples gallery. The last plan we were just working on was the Riverstone plan. You can watch the video, the Fire and Ice kitchen, and the Steam Relaxed bath. Those are all sample plans in a video you can watch. Also, when you are a full customer, there are a full set of training videos on the website, and these are very detailed. I would encourage you to come out here, use this resource. There's different playlists, so if you want to go through kitchen and bath design, interior design, roof design, and other elements that may be more building oriented, these videos, I think there's about 400 of them, will walk you step by step through the program. Thanks for watching, and go out and design some great interior spaces and kitchens and baths. Thanks.